どういった戦法を取っていくかという解説をさせていただければと思います。また、ストーリーについても、軽くにはなるかもしれないですけど、後ほど触れていければと思います。では、よろしくお願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。それでは、早速ゲームを始めていきましょう。まず、ニューゲームを選んで、はい、主人公を、の物語を
Hello, I am Sunny Muffin on the English commentary for this Galdera race, and with me today we have Quadra. Quadra, are you excited for this race?
Yeah, I'm really excited. These are two Japanese runners who I've been watching for a while, and I'm really excited to see what they have to bring to the table. The Japanese runners, they might have some route variations compared to the English-speaking community, so it's definitely exciting to see what they're gonna do.
Yeah, we're going to be following this Galdera race. On the left, we have Teppo, and on the right, we have Shin. They're both two top-tier Galdera runners. I think they're currently 3rd and 4th, correct me if I'm wrong, in the Galdera category for PC. Both of runners are going to be starting with Tressa. She is the fastest story to get going with, as well as she has some very important traits that are going to come in handy when we dive a little bit more into the run. Quadra, do you want to explain what the Galdera run entails?
Yeah, so actually Galdera is the name of the final super boss of this game, and as you might expect, the category involves beating Galdera as quickly as possible. To challenge Galdera, you have to finish all 8 character stories, as well as complete a few prerequisite side quests, so we're gonna be doing all of those in the story. And on top of that, although it's optional, we also challenge all 4 of the secret job bosses, just because they bring a lot of utility to the table, but that's something we'll explain later. For now, they're actually going to head over to the first dungeon, and you're going to see quite a few things. Actually see Teppo opting to run, while Shin is going to walk all the way, I think. And perhaps Sunny can explain why some runners might choose to walk a bit more.
Yeah, so this first area of Tressa, Octopath is run on a quasi-step counter, I guess is the best way to explain it. You're going to be given a range of steps before you encounter an encounter. And by walking, you actually increase the amount of steps before your next encounter, but walking is obviously slower. So our runners are hoping to only get 2 encounters before they hit the cave here. That is generally considered to be optimal, and you want to walk as little as possible with still only getting 2.
Yeah, we actually see Teppo getting owned by fish right now, so compared to encounters that you can only you get one monster in, you can break those monsters and then you're guaranteed to escape. But for our current party setup right now, which is just Tressa, we cannot break both enemies at once. So if you get the fish here or 2 birds, you are forced to just flee. And there's no use killing these encounters because they do not give any benefit whatsoever in this point of the game. And we actually see Shin get that 3rd encounter that both of them were hoping to skip. And I believe Teppo actually got 2 encounters, but because of the bad fish encounter, both of them are very even at this point still.
Yeah, and encounter RNG is going to play a pretty large part into the time difference between these 2 runners. Their execution is very, very similar. So sometimes, as with most RPGs, you can just get RNG'd. Octopath Traveler does pull the encounters from a pool, but some areas have set first encounters, like this one right here. So both of our runners are going to encounter this sleeping pirate and make quick work of him with Tressa's Trade Wind skill, and be moving on to the first boss of the run, Mick and Mac.
Yeah, you notice that each enemy has weaknesses and shields, so when you take off all their shields, they become broken. Like I said, it guarantees escape, but the enemies also take more damage, and they also lose the ability to move for that turn, the next turn. And then by boosting, you can increase your damage and increase buff and debuff duration, etc. So these 2 are the core mechanics to the combat system of this game, and you're gonna see that put to very good use in this first boss fight here against Mick and Mac. So the fight here is the strat here is to take out Mick first. He has less HP and he does more damage, so it's a very natural choice to pick him first. And then for Mac, you have he has 4 shields, so your strategy here is to keep yourself healthy while whittling down his shields and prepare for one big attack on his break. And so the runners here have to eyeball their HP and heal up whenever they are at risk of dying. Fortunately, by killing the pirate just now, you actually get 1 level, and then not only gives you a free heal, but it also gives you more HP, so that this fight becomes a lot more consistent. In the worst case, you can actually have Mac charge up his Pirate's Pride again, and that loses quite a bit of time compared to the fastest fight.
Yeah, there's a little bit of variance in here, and we see Teppo coming out to a little bit of an early lead, exiting Tressa 1, but both these runners are just right on each other's heels. I think we're going to be in for a really, really good race here.
Yeah, both of these runners have actually been running Galdera for quite some time, and like I said, again, I'm very excited to see. I haven't watched them do a full run before, so this is the first time I'll be actually watching them do a run from start to finish, and I'm very excited to see what they have to bring to the table. Teppo actually was one of the few contributors to the route when this route was being routed out in the early stages. So definitely runners of very high caliber here.
Yeah, generally in the NA community / English speaking community, we just kind of wait to see what the Japanese runners do and then poach their good strats. So definitely being one of those that consistently is innovating, and not just in the Galdera category, but some of the other categories that he runs.
Yeah, very creative minds that the Japanese have. I love working. Well, I say working, but it's more we don't actually communicate that much. But it's cool that despite the language barrier, we can actually still learn from each other. And Teppo actually runs into fish again.
Oh no, you hate to see it.
He gets the YOLO fleet this time. But yeah, awesome. Right outside Rippletide, you actually saw them complete a quest. That's Kit the Traveler. It's one of the quests that's required to unlock Galdera. So there are 2 side quests, lines of side quests. First being Kit's quest, and the second being Alphys's quest, which we'll do later. And right now, we're actually going to head to Noble Court, Atlas Dam, to pick up our second character, Cyrus. Perhaps Sunny can explain why Cyrus is such an integral part of Octopath speedrunning.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that we are on a quasi-step counter for encounters, where basically each zone is going to give you a range of steps you can take before you hit an encounter. Cyrus, being the scholar character, is going to get the passive ability Evasive Maneuvers, and that is basically going to 2.5 times the amount of steps before you get an encounter. Octopath being a very open game, so like right now, these runners can go anywhere in the world that they want. Getting Evasive Maneuvers as early as possible is going to really cut down the amount of random encounters they get and allow them to do some exploration into sections that they should have no business being in this early in the run.
Yeah, we actually exploit the step counter mechanic very heavily in this run. There is a bunch of techniques that we use to reset the step counter, and of course evasive maneuvers being the most important skill to have to even be able to get across these screens in the first place. Here in Cyrus's dungeon, we want to kill 2 encounters, and this is to get enough JP or job points from Tressa to learn a new skill called Hired Help. And Hired Help is going to be the main source of damage for most of the early game, actually, until we unlock a more powerful class. And for very good reason. Hired Help is actually probably one of the best skills in the game. Probably not something a lot of people use casually, just because you have to spend a lot of money to use it. But in the speedrun, we want to go fast. This is the best method to deal lots of damage, because Hired Help's damage is not based off your stats. It's based off a separate stat line. And the highest tier of Hired Help is actually called Hired Help Veterans and deals a lot of damage. Conversely, it also costs a lot of money, and that's why we want Cyrus, so we can go around the world and pick up lots of money without getting encounters that will kill us. And here we're actually... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sunny.
Okay, it looks like Teppo is going to be our first one into the wrestle fight. Wrestle is going to be our second Chapter 1 boss. Chapter 1 bosses in this game scale based on how many party members you have. So Wrestle is going to be basically twice as difficult as the Mick and Mac fight, but we do have access to that hired help ability, and using hired help dancers, making very, very quick work of Wrestle and finishing off Osiris 1.
Yeah, you also saw that both runners threw an Ice Soulstone medium. This is actually a drop that we got from Chess's boss, Mick and Mac. And Soulstones are items that deal fixed amount of damage, so it's also a very convenient way to get around the low levels and low damage of your characters at the moment. And these are going to be very important throughout the entire run, not just for picking up characters early, but also filling out certain damage threshold to hit certain damage thresholds on some of the fights later on. And in fact, we actually purchased Thunder Soulstone Small from the guard outside Alice, the library there. So Soulstones come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, and they deal increasing amounts of damage as you go up the size. And we actually scrutinize a medium soulstone in the Atlas Dam Square here. Scrutinizes Cyrus's path action that allows him to uncover hidden items and also maybe unlock more items in shops, get information to complete quests, and stuff like that. And with that medium soulstone that we scrutinize, we're actually going to head over to an area known as the Whistlewood to grind for JP, because this is a higher level area. It's going to have more monsters that give more JP on average per group. And this is by far the best way and quickest way to grind for the required JP for evasive maneuvers here.
Oh, and both runners getting identical encounters on the way to Whistlewood, the double frog. That's really not what you want to see, but it's okay. But heading into Whistlewood, this is one of the bigger RNG points of the run. Our runners are going to be hoping for bugs. Bug encounters are good, and they give a lot of JP. Frog encounters are bad. However, with this party setup, it's pretty efficient to grind JP outside of the Whistlewood if they choose to opt into the frog encounter. So you see on the right, Shin getting the double ant pig encounter. That's a really, really good high JP encounter, and he's going to be a little bit ahead on that JP grind. Whereas Teppo took the Whistlewood encounter of just frogs and is now going to need to do some more grinding outside.
Yeah, Teppo actually got the worst frogs encounter. 1 helmet frog with 3 no helmet frogs. That's the worst encounter, gives the least amount of JP. So I believe Teppo's going to need at least 2 more encounters, considering the fact that he got 2 frogs outside Whistlewood as well. Whereas Shin, also getting the bad frogs encounter. This will give slightly more JP just because the helmet frog that he took that's in this encounter gives a bit more JP. And I believe Shin only needs 1 more encounter here. Any encounter will do for Shin. He is at 123 JP and you need 130 for evasive maneuvers. And Teppo getting really lucky with his Whistlewood grind, getting ambushed by 3 frogs over here. But I think this might be it for both runners in terms of their JP grind. Shin's already gotten evasive maneuvers. And Tressa as Teppo as well. So both runners are still neck and neck in this early game.
Yeah, it's actually really nice to see that neither of them really got Whistlewooded too bad. You can have a pretty large time swing on that if you get lucky on that specific split. Both runners getting very, very similar RNG and are now moving on to the first exploration section. The goal of this first exploration section is going to be picking up a bunch of these secondary jobs as well as tagging cities. The secondary jobs, if you think about, we have the 8 primary jobs. You can attach a secondary job onto any of those characters, and there's 1 for every primary job. So picking those up is going to give these runners a lot more flexibility in their party composition, as well as allow access to double of certain jobs, and as well as they're going to be running around and tagging cities. So Octopath Traveler does have a fast travel system where you can travel very quickly to any city you have already visited. So a lot of this exploration is going to be them just running in and running out of these various cities, because we're going to be winding up traveling to basically every town in the game throughout this run.
I find it so amusing that they're literally on the same pace right now. The exact same footage is happening, is being shown on both screens. It's so amusing. But yeah, they have just gotten the Scholar Shrine. So, like Sunny mentioned, we can have secondary jobs on our characters. It's kind of like Final Fantasy V. So all the characters will be able to get access to a different skill set and also the support skills of those subclasses as well. And both of them even getting the same encounter in Ripple Tide.
Are they on the same seed? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, they might be on the same RNG seed, Kappa. Both of them even choosing to use mercs to break the encounter.
Yeah, it is actually ridiculous how close these runners are.
Yeah. I mean, considering the fact that there's lots of variance in the early game and Whistlewood, this is pretty funny to see. And you actually see Teppo opting to go for a 1,200 leaves chest. This is just to get more money because Teppo probably felt that he used a lot of bandits earlier. Bandits being what he used with Tressa to grind JP outside Whistlewood. So maybe Teppo just wants a bit more security in terms of his money. Money's going to be a bit tight for the early game. We're going to want to have enough money to fund our use of hired help veterans later. They cost 30,000 leaves a use, which is very expensive. Considering that you don't really get that many leaves from killing counters and everything. Most of the leaves that we get are going to be from exploration, picking up leaves and chests. And most of these chests will be in very high level areas. We call those the ring free areas or the third ring. There are 3 rings in this world. The first ring being where chapter 1 towns are. The second ring being where chapter 2 and 3 towns are, and the third ring being where chapter 4 towns are. So as you go into the outer rings, further out into the outer rings, the enemies will start getting a lot stronger. Conversely, you also get a lot better loot in chests. So that's where we're going to aim to go to pick up a lot of our resources.
Yeah, and those Ring 3 encounters are basically death at this point. There's really nothing the runners can do against those. So we're really hoping to avoid those random encounters. This run has been routed to the point where you have what are called safe screens, where you literally cannot get an encounter, and then you have screens where it's less likely, and then you have screens where there's a high chance of encounters. The game does autosave on every transition, like from one area to the other. So getting an encounter is not the end of the world. It just wastes a good amount of time. But it is pretty friendly in that regard. You can just reload your autosave and then keep going from where you left off. The run that these runners are doing right now is one of the scarier ones in the run, and they both get it. That is some top tier movement from these guys.
Yeah, over in Stoneguard you can get this encounter which is very annoying. It's the buffalo and the bird. The buffalo is the one that's dangerous because it deals a lot of damage. Fortunately, both our characters are able to break the encounter. Cyrus having Firestorm specifically to break the bull, and Tressa having bandits, which will kill the bird and break the bull at the same time. And you're gonna see the first instance of what we call save and quit. It's a technique that we use to manipulate the step counter. By saving and quitting at the save point over there, you can reset the step counter and get to the Merchant Shrine very safely with no encounters. You can actually make it from the start of the screen to the Merchant Shrine without an encounter, but that's extremely unlikely and not something that the runners want to risk at this point.
Yeah, so there's basically 3 ways of resetting your step counter. You have the save and quit, you have entering a new zone, and then you have getting an encounter. So if you do get an encounter, that does reset your step counter back to the 0 state, and you have a certain amount of steps before the next one. All 3 of these will be abused in the run to make sure that we get as few random encounters as possible, because we want to take as much RNG out of the run as we can.
Yeah, there's actually one secret method of resetting your step counter, but we only use it once later in exploration. There's one other secret method, but you see that later. Right now, both runners are going to be heading to Grandport, and we're going to tag Goldshore along the way. At the entrance, there's actually a man that you can scrutinize for a Thunder Soulstone Large. This is going to be pretty nice to have later, but we're not going to pick it up now because there's actually a cutscene later in one of the stories that puts you very close to the item. And right now they're going to hit to Grandport. And Teppo actually choosing to scrutinize this man here for a safe route as well. So I really like that Teppo's taking lots of safety precautions in terms of his money. The safe route is a quest that gives you 11,000 leaves. Normally we don't scrutinize it because we don't need the money and it's pretty slow to complete the quest. But there is a pretty risky scrutinize that you have to do later, which is 30% in one of the in one of the early game towns. And if you fail all 5 of your scrutinizes, you have to go to the tavern to reset your reputation because in every town you start off with 5 reputation. These are chances to get path actions that are based off percentages such as Therion Steel or Cyrus's Scrutinize. Every time you fail, you lose a reputation, and if you lose all 5 reputation, you will not be able to do any more path actions, and you have to go to the tavern to reset your reputation. And that also comes with a cost, and in Saintsbridge, which is the town later, it's going to cost 8,000 leaves, so that's going to put that's going to blow a hole in our wallet, and definitely something that is going to be very detrimental if it happens. So Teppo choosing to do the safe route Scroot there, just to make sure that in case Cyrus doesn't do his job later, he will still have that security and money.
Yeah, and while you mentioned path actions, I believe both runners are doing the Ophelia Sorcerer route, which is notably a difference from the Cyrus Sorcerer route, which was like the initial one that was routed. It turns out Ophelia has less of a hard time doing 2 of the required path actions for the run. Not required, but required for gear that you need to beat Galdera. So the Ophelia route kind of sprung up because of that. Again, just reducing the amount of RNG as much as possible.
Yeah, so the Ophelia Sorcerer route is actually a very new route, relatively new compared to how long the category has been around. It's actually routed by a runner known as Zero, so shoutouts to Zero. And there's quite a few reasons why the Ophelia Sorcerer route is probably the most popular Galdera route today. So the 2 risky allures that Sunny mentioned, that's one of them. Another reason is because of Cyrus's talent, which is called Study Foe. So Study Foe is whenever you enter a battle, Cyrus is going to reveal weakness of each enemy. And that's nice in a casual setting because you get to know the weaknesses of your enemies, but we're speedrunners, so we already know all the relevant weaknesses. And on top of that, the Study Foe animation actually takes 2 seconds. So throughout the entire run, Cyrus is going to lose you at least a couple of minutes just based on Study Foe alone. So that's one of the main reasons why the Ophelia Sorcerer route was also developed. And you can actually save a lot of time on the Cyrus route just by cutting out Cyrus from a lot of fights. Of course, it comes with a few of its drawbacks as well, such as a bit more menuing and having to get a bit more gear to accommodate Ophelia's slightly lower elemental attack. But overall, it's a very stable route with that's very competitive as well in terms of potential top times.
Yeah, in all reality, this run is about 3 hours and 45 minutes is what these guys have for their estimate, and that those allures happen at about 3 hours into the run. So if you can lower that variance that happens 3 hours in, that's good. That is always good to make sure that you save that time. So our runners are heading, just kind of finishing up their exploration here. So they're eventually going to be heading and getting Therion. But before then, one of the big reroutes that was done when Zero and Sanjin first picked up this run was optimizing a lot of these town movements. So you're going to see both runners here enter into Quarry Crest and start Tressa 2. Tressa 2 is a story that spans both screens of Quarry Crest here, and it takes them all the way from basically the bottom where they need to be to go fight the boss all the way to the top. And it turns out if you do all of the story prompts that take you up to the top, teleport out, go do something else, teleport back. That's a lot faster than traversing the entire town. So these little micro optimizations have brought down the Galdera category pretty significantly.
Yeah, I really like these like you said, it's movement optimizations. It feels really stylish to be doing it, not having to run around as much. While we're hearing query requests, we're actually going to purchase quite a few soul stones. These are going to be very useful for picking up characters later, and also to kill random encounters. Because the larger your party, the longer it takes to fail random encounters, because when you fail, you have to wait for all your characters to pass their turn, and then you have to wait for all the enemies to take their turn, and then you can try again on the next turn. So with one character, it's not too bad. With two characters, it's a little worse. Still not too bad, but once you get to like 3 or more characters, it's gonna really start being very expensive when you fail encounters. Fail to run from encounters. And here's what we talked about. We are here in Stoneguard now. Sunny, perhaps you can go ahead.
Yeah, so and just to kind of build on what you were talking about, it's like the worst feeling in the world when you're in Ring 1 and you get like a 5 enemy encounter with a 4-person party, and those enemies have absolutely zero chance of killing you, but also you can't kill them, so it just takes forever to run from them. But yeah, both of our runners are here in Stoneguard. Literally, they just need to do the bottom section of Stoneguard to pick up some soul stones, as well as the very important elemental augmenter. So the best damage scaling in Octopath is via elemental attack, and the elemental augmenter is an absolutely busted item. I believe it's only like 5,000 leaves, but it gives you plus 100 E attack or elemental attack, and the cap for elemental attack is 999. So we're going to be picking up a couple of those elemental augmenters. They're super powerful and are going to be used throughout the entire run.
Yeah, it's incredible value for just the few thousand leaves that Sunny mentioned, and we're gonna use that almost immediately after exploration. Actually, the other item that we picked up in Stoneguard is the Mighty Belt. That's also important, but not nearly as important as the Elemental Augmenter. Both runners actually skipping the Boulderfall encounter, which is pretty likely, so that's also something that's amusing to see. And there's both still neck and neck, actually. And yeah, they're picking up Therion now. Therion's going to be very important because he has a talent that allows him to unlock purple chests. As you can see at the back there, there's one purple chest. These are chests that only Therion can open. And a lot of these purple chests contain very strong items, equipment, as well as money. So you notice that for the Grandport section of exploration, there weren't any purple chests that we opened. But in this next, after Therion, we're going to want to go to a lot of areas that have these purple chests. So that's why it's essential to pick up Therion early as well.
Yeah, and Therion and Tressa are going to be basically the two main characters throughout that you see for the majority of the run. They're really the core of the composition that we use to do most of the main stories, and just the reason for that is utility. Tressa with her hired help, and then Therion with his ability to open purple chests and steal, as well as Tressa can purchase. Just keeping those two around for a majority of the run is really beneficial to going fast. So the way Octopath works is we have our 8 characters, but we can only have a party of 4 at any given time. And we need to complete all 8 characters' stories. So basically it's going to be having 3 carries and then cycling through a 4th character and finishing off their stories.
So this is Heathcote. He's Therion's first boss. And you can see that he's just gone instantly because of the power of Soulstones. So at this point of the run, Chapter 1 bosses actually don't have a lot of HP. So Soulstones are going to be the most efficient way to defeat them. And we didn't mention this earlier, but you see that some of the Soulstones actually did more damage than normal. This is because when you hit an enemy for its weakness, it actually deals 1.3 times the normal amount of damage. So we can make use of that to hit certain damage thresholds. So for example, with 3 characters, Heathcote has about 4,300 HP. So we can use Thunder L, which he's weak to deal increased damage, 3,500, and then any M-Stone will pick him off. Compared to if we use, for example, like a Wind Soulstone, which doesn't deal increased damage. it's not going to deal enough because it's 2007 plus 1001.
Yeah, it is something that the runners really have to keep in mind throughout the run. The way that the Galdera is routed, you basically have the exact right amount of soul stones except for wind. Wind is kind of the element that doesn't really do anything specific for our runners. The other elemental variants just have very specific uses that they're going to be targeting to use them on, and hopefully they don't run out of the soul stones because that gets a little awkward.
Yeah, soulstone round is going to be something that's very important, especially if you want to run this game at a very high level. Both our runners are going to have to pay attention to how many soulstones they have, not just to make sure that they have the requisite stones to complete the content later, but also having more soulstones allows you to speed up certain encounters as well, because eventually you're going to start to want to grind encounters for the XP and JP that they give, and soulstones are going to be useful because they're going to allow your non-main damage dealers to be dealing lots of damage to the encounters as well, instead of having to wait for another turn for your mage to kill them.
Yeah, and another point for exploration, you saw the runners run into Victor's Hollow there. We're going to be purchasing a number of nuts. Nuts in this game are basically permanent stat boosts. The big ones that we're worried about are the magic stat boost and the physical damage stat boost, because those are going to be, we want to do more damage because you want to go fast. There will be some other nuts that we pick up as well, just to meet some certain damage thresholds, so like we don't get one-shotted by some of the bosses that are going to be coming up. But yeah, both runners just completely synced up at this point. This screen right here going to the Cleric Shrine is one of the ones that you do have a pretty high probability of getting an encounter on, so we'll see if the runners can desync here based on that.
Yeah, I actually noticed that Shin didn't pick up the large olive in the Hunter Shrine. It's just something that gives you more money security. So we can really see that Teppo is taking a lot of safety precautions when it comes to his money, where Shin's choosing to go fast. Shin actually got the Cleric Shrine encounter, but he was able to kill it very handily with that, very easily with that Thunder Soulstone.
That's just going to be something in the back of his head, is that he used that Thunder Soulstone. The XP here isn't like very relevant, so he knows that he has to make up that Soulstone somewhere in the route.
Yeah, you actually have one spare Thunder Soulstone just for this encounter, and technically the Victor's Hollow encounter as well. But most runners choose to skip that because it's very easily skippable by just resetting your step counter. The Cleric Shrine encounter isn't skippable without having to take a large detour though, so most runners just choose to risk the encounter. One annoying thing about the Cleric Shrine encounter is that it tends to ambush you as well, so even though you can kill it, it tends to kill you more often than you can kill it. So that's one of the few bad moments when it comes to that encounter. And now we can actually see that Shin's a bit behind now just because he got that encounter. Like Sunny said, that XP and JP is not important at this point in the run, because the main character that we want the XP and JP on at this point is not in the party yet. We're still doing exploration so we can pick up, so we can prepare to pick up the rest of our characters. 2 more actually, that we're gonna pick up before we start trying to rush some of the stories. You see that both runners here head into the Moth the Ice Dragon. They want to pick up some money and also the Adamantine Hat. So the Adamantine Hat is the best hat in the game. It has a lot of defense, a ton of elemental defense, and also it gives you 88 elemental attacks. So it's almost as much as an elemental augmenter. It's the best hat in the game, not only when it comes to your defense, defensive utility, but also for damage, elemental damage. And you can also see that's one of the reasons why elemental damage scales so well, just because there's there's a lot of equipment that boosts your elemental attack, but not a lot of equipment that boosts your physical attack. So physical attacks aren't actually going to be used that much in this run, only a bit towards the end.
I hope you weren't hoping to see any ethical physical builds here. Physical is always bait. You always want to go elemental with Octopath Traveler. But yeah, both of our runners picking up the Dancer's Shrine here. They're going to be heading down to Marcelin. Again, just tagging all of these various locations, and because we're going to be having to come back here anyway, because you do need to complete all 4 chapters of all eight travelers' stories. So 32 chapters are going to be done throughout this run. So just getting it out of the way early is usually the best bet, because you can go loot those high level areas and pick up that really powerful gear that's locked behind those further rings.
Both runners resetting the step counter at the bottom wellspring screen here just to avoid the encounter. It's very likely that you get the encounter on the way to wellspring. I haven't tried it before, but I'm pretty sure it's close to impossible to not get the encounter, if it even is possible.
Yeah,
both
really
runners got the... Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I do really like the marathon safe strategies that both of these runners are going for. It always is kind of a testament to a runner to be taken out of that reset environment and put into a no reset and still be able to consistently finish these runs.
Yeah, speaking of another safety measure, this is something that pretty much everyone does. You reset your step counter at Marcelin Catacombs here after picking up the money and the Thunder Soulstone. I believe it's actually possible to make it to Marcelin. I've actually done it before, but don't do that. It's very, very risky. In fact, you can even get an encounter on the way to Marcelin from the Catacombs, even though it's very unlikely.
Yeah, at this point in the run, it's a very long run. You don't want to really go for these risky YOLO strats this early, because it's just going to put you behind. In our single story categories that are much shorter, you are much more likely to go for the high variance plays to try to save that couple of seconds that you do save.
See both runners choosing to pick up the Invigorating M in Marcelin here, so... Invigorating M is a nut that gives you more nuts. That gives you more SP. Actually, I did find out that the second Invigorating M isn't useful, isn't needed. But it was in the route when it was first routed.
I just want to shout out both of them running by the Tempest Amulet. I missed that Drisang strat.
Yeah, we'll explain that later if we have the time. But what we did in Marcelin was purchase a few pomegranates, some soulstones, and also picked up some armor that was just lying around. This armor is going to be pretty useful for our squishy characters. And pomegranates are items that give you boost points, replenish boost points instantly. So these are very useful for speeding up fights. As you can imagine, boost points are going to be integral to setting up a lot of our fights and also dealing lots of damage.
Yeah, so our runners are coming up on the Everhold screen. So we see Teppo on the left-hand side doing a save and quit. Encounters on the screen are very, very deadly, but this is one of the areas of the game that's kind of awkward to traverse, just because it's such a big, long area. You're pretty much guaranteed to get an encounter without that save and quit. So the runners are going to have to do 2, one through the first time they pass through here, and then they're going to reverse back through, do another save and quit, and head to Everhold Tunnels. The big question here is if any of them are going to go for the 3% steal on the Sorcerer's robe, just to get that swag out of the way. Let's see if they do it.
Teppo's going for the purchase.
Teppo's anti-fun. I don't know. You got to go for the 3%. It saves you a bunch of leaves, and you can cut some money elsewhere. But it's 3%. You're not going to likely to get it.
Yeah, the Sorcerer's robe being the best armor when it comes to buffing elemental attack. It gives you a ton of elemental defense and some good physical defense as well. Shin actually going for a steal. Oh no, he baited me.
Oh, Sag.
Shin went for the steal, but then just and then cancelled and went to purchase. Yeah, the Sorcerer's Robe is a 38,000 leaves, so if you somehow decide to steal that and get it, it's gonna save you some money.
Yeah, the current all side stories world record gets it, so it's mandatory.
Alright, so the next area our runners are going to enter is the Evol Tunnels. This is a very dangerous area, a very long screen, and we're actually going to see that secret method of abusing the step counter that I mentioned earlier. So at the end of dungeons like these, there's actually an optional boss that you can fight if you Teppo didn't get the Tressa first though. Tressa's the only one that can break this encounter. Yeah. But yeah, at the end of this screen there's an optional boss. If you've obviously we're not gonna face it, but if you get the prompt and you refuse to face it, it actually resets your step counter. So hopefully Shin doesn't get the encounter here, so we can actually see that being put to work. But nope, he gets the encounter. So both are runners getting a bit unlucky in this Evol Tunnel section.
They've had like the same RNG all the way throughout, outside of the Cleric Shrine encounter. It's been like actually pretty ridiculous.
Teppo gets it on the second try. So over here in Tunnels, we want to pick up a few things. The first is some leaves. That's the least important part of the Tunnels actually, even though it's really nice to have all that money. The next thing we want to pick up is the Knowledge Staff. So this is the best staff that we can pick up from a chest in the overworld, I believe, and it's also one of the best styles in the game that you have access to without considering post-game items. And it's going to be very important because obviously we're going to use magic as our main source of damage. The last thing we want to pick up is a Death Cleaver. So the Death Cleaver is an axe that deals a lot of damage.
So it's a Quadra.
Because I was watching them. Sorry, the Death Cleaver is one of the strongest axes in the game. We're not only going to be using it to meet more damage thresholds with one of our axe-using characters later, but we're also going to be using it for a super spicy skill on the final boss.
So you did neglect to mention the most important part about the Knowledge Staff, which is the speed boost. So the Knowledge Staff will speed up the character that is using it, and one of the main considerations for not using the Knowledge Staff is it puts your caster character to the front of the party, so you're not able to get any buffs off usually. Speed in this game is random, but it is pretty consistent that you get that caster character right at the start. So in the mid sections of this run, you're going to see some swapping between the BT staff and the Knowledge Staff, just to adjust that character's speed to get some more favorable patterns.
We actually saw that Shin did a very risky run in Tunnels. I believe Shin skipped one of the stat reset prompts, and that actually put him ahead of Teppo. So it's nice to see that Shin, both runners are actually still pretty close right now, and they're actually kind of whatchamacallit, they're actually using very contrasting approaches to this run. So Teppo taking more consistent strats and Shin tending to play a bit more risky, as we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think it's really just speaks to the caliber of these runners, both of them finishing their exploration around the 41-minute mark. That's a very, very good time. Like outside of Kate attempts for a non-Kate run, that's some pretty above average RNG to this point.
Yeah, so we finally pick up our cleric girl Ophelia. She's gonna be our main damage dealer for most of the run. And if you get unlucky, you can actually she can actually die here. If Guardian crits and high rolls her, she can actually die. But otherwise, this fight's very simple. So you have all your scholar gear on not scholar gear, but you have all your magic gear on Cyrus. So we teach him Blizzard specifically for these few fights. And he's gonna use the Blizzard to not only break the Guardian, but also deal lots of damage.
Yeah, and Ophelia is actually going to be dual purpose here. So Ophelia has the Badge of Friendship locked behind her Chapter 4. So every character in this game has something locked behind finishing off their story, and Ophelia's is the Badge of Friendship, which causes you to get double JP if you have it equipped on one of your party members. So Ophelia is actually going to be the first story that we complete, and she's going to be in our party for pretty much the remainder of the game.
And right now we're going to pick up Alphen. So this is one of the differences with the Sire Sorcerer route as well. So in the Sire Sorcerer route, you would pick up Alphen after Ophelia's Chapter 4. But because, and that's because you had to keep Ophelia in your party as well as Cyrus in your party. during all the Ophelia chapters, because you actually cannot take out the character that you start with. That you start with until you finish your chapter 4. So Cyrus's chapter 4 is only going to be completed at about the 3-hour mark, very late towards the end of the run. So we aren't going to be able to take Cyrus out, but with the Ophelia Sorcerer route, we start with Tressa, so we're going to be able to take Cyrus out because he's not going to be needed other than the screw that we will do in Saint's Bridge later. So we can actually pick up Alphen, who is not only best boy, but also has a lot more utility than Cyrus. The main reason why he's so good is his talent known as Concoct. So Concoct is Alphen's talent, which allows him to mix ingredients to produce various effects, and these can range from breaking shields off of enemies to giving BP to your entire party and also preventing states ailments. So there's a lot of things that Alphen can do, and the reason why he's used in so many of the upcoming fights. And one of the big reasons why we get him early.
Yeah, that's actually been a pretty recent development as well. Some of the Alphen optimizations for the Ophelia route in particular. Alphen as a character was pretty underused in some of the initial routes for Galdera, but we really did come around to like how powerful he is. He's going to enable a pretty ridiculous Dreasang strat that saves quite a bit of time over the old one. But Apothecary on its own without Concoct is pretty useless, and it's actually one of the only jobs that we skip. So when we head to Saint's Bridge to go do Ophelia 2, we're not even going to pick up that shrine because it's just not needed at this point.
Yeah, before that we used to pick up the Apothecary Shrine just to get the extra HP that the Apothecary subclass gives. But we figured out with some clever equipment routing that we can actually just skip that. So Apothecary sadly became the first shrine that is skipped in Galdera. And after Alphen Chapter 1, you see both of these runners picking up this item known as the Essence of Pomegranate from Meryl. This is going to enable Alphen's very busted Concoct, as Sunny alluded to later. As Sunny earlier alluded to later, that we're going to use. And right now we're actually going to hit to Saint's Bridge. And right now the plan is actually to rush all of Ophelia's chapters. So Sunny did mention that we want to pick up the Friendship Badge as soon as possible. Eventually we're going to, like I said, we're going to start to want to grind JP. And we're actually going to need a lot of JP to teach all the skills that we need for this run. So the Friendship Badge is going to expedite that very, very nicely. Along the way, they are going to take this, because of, this screen used to be very safe with tagging the Apothecary Shrine. But now that we skip it, we can actually get an encounter on the way to Saint's Bridge. So Shin actually getting the encounter. Fortunately, he did not get ambushed, so he does not lose as much time there. But he's going to fall behind Teppo again because of this encounter.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate getting encounters here. Like, yeah, you see Cyrus makes pretty quick work of it, but the amount of JP and the amount of XP that these encounters give is really just not worth it at this point in the run, especially before you get Badge of Friendship and Captain's Badge. So it really doesn't advance you toward any of your goals. It's just kind of a minor time waster. There is going to be one encounter that they do intentionally take to hit some skill breakpoints right before the Hrotvidnir fight. And that is going to be up here in the Mirkwood, which is the next area our runner is going to head to.
Yeah, before that, we have one last job for Cyrus. It's to scrutinize this man here. It's very important that you scrutinize him because he gives you an item. He unlocks more items in the shops. Shin actually getting it first try, I believe, so that's very nice. Teppo getting it fourth try. This item is very important because it gives you extra maximum HP. And that's going to be the best way to increase the bulk of your characters, because you don't have equipment to go around for all characters. And also, it being more efficient to just stack HP on everyone. And right now you're going to see the first big menu of this game. They're going to give the nuts. Most of them are going to go to Ophelia, like the magic nuts and the invigorating nuts. The HP nuts will go to both Ophelia and Tressa just to make sure that they survive some combinations of attacks later. And they're going to teach a bunch of skills here. So Ophelia's going to get Blizzard because she's going to be the Scholar from now on. Darren's going to get Armor Corrosive. It's a debuff that increases physical damage. And that's going to be very useful because it's going to increase the damage dealt by our hired out veterans. Alpha's going to get Amputation, and along with that, Death Cleaver is going to allow him to deal lots of damage. And Tressa is going to get evasive maneuvers because we just kicked Cyrus out of the party after having him do his one last job. And also we put the Hunter in Tressa. This is to set up for the menu later and also giving her a bit more accuracy just to ensure that she doesn't miss the upcoming boss. And with that, we can actually head off to the Mirkwood.
Yeah, so the big things that we're going to be kind of abusing in this run to go fast are the buffs and debuffs. So you kind of alluded to Armor Corrosive. That is a debuff that goes on the boss. It increases physical damage taken. And then we have the two magic buffs. We'll have Elemental Break, which will come into play a little bit later, as well as Peacock Strut. Peacock Strut is a buff on one of your characters that increases the amount of magic damage they deal. These are multiplicative, so they are very, very powerful. And currently, our Sorcerer, Ophelia, has quite a bit of base stats just because of those passives from the nuts, as well as the pretty insane amount of gear that she has on for this point in the game.
I love that Shin used Arrowstone to break the bugs there. Alphen's actually the squishiest party member at this point because he doesn't have any gear on him at the moment. He's going to become the tankiest one later, just because of his very high base HP. But right now he has very little HP and has no gear, so he's very squishy. If you get ambushed, there's a very high chance of him dying. I like Shin. I like Shin's play there, Arrowstone to break the bugs, just to ensure that he doesn't die. Teppo actually got surprised by the encounter. He got ambushed, so he lost a bit of time there. Shin getting ambushed as well in the forest.
Yeah, Aerostrom is actually kind of a sneaky good ability. It does hit at least 3 times on every target for arrow damage, and a lot of enemies in this game are actually weak to arrows. So actually training that ability early is quite a bit of like utility for your hunter character.
I love that play that Shin made. So Shin identified very correctly that because he got ambushed, he was actually able to save the Soulstone with that specific encounter. Basically, with some encounters that don't have the tree, if you get ambushed, you can actually use a ×3 boosted spell with Ophelia to clear the encounter instead. And with that, Shin saves the Soulstone that he used on the Cleric Shrine encounter. Normally, you would use a large Soulstone here to kill the encounter.
This is Frontvidnir. This is Ophelia's Chapter 2 boss. It's pretty much a pushover. This boss basically lets you set up on it. It doesn't do anything until turn 2, and by the time it's turn 2, it's broken and dead. So both runners making pretty quick work of it. Teppo with a little bit of a lead here, but this is still very, very neck and neck.
Yeah, this early game is very intense when it comes to RNG. There's just a lot of variance when it comes to random encounters. The random encounters that you get, whether you get ambushed or not, and just some of the boss fights can even be kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah, Ophelia's chapters are pretty infamous for causing quite a bit of time loss early on in this run. The encounters were not a high enough level to prevent ambushes, so you're going to see quite a bit of the runners getting ambushed, like you already saw there in the Mirkwood, as well as when we move into the Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 areas. You can just lose minutes on getting a bad random encounter that ambushes you.
So after Ophelia 2, we purchased the bracelets that I mentioned earlier, the accessories that give you 500 extra additional max HP. We're going to slap that on all of our characters. Ophelia's going to get 1, Alpha's going to get 2, Theron's going to get 1, and Tressa's going to get 1. You notice we also unequipped the Adamantine Shoot from Ophelia, and we optimized it onto Tressa. This is to set up her equipment for later, just to give her a bit more safety, and also to give her more bulk. And then we teach more skills. We give Alphen 2 warrior skills. This is going to unlock cover. Cover is a very useful skill when it comes to safety, because when a character is under 30% HP, if they were going to be hit by another physical attack, a character with cover will actually take the physical attack for them. So we actually set up a lot of our fights in a way such that a lot of our squishier characters will not survive 2 attacks, but they'll survive some of the attacks under 30% HP, and then if they were to get hit again, a tankier character with cover will take the hit for them. And that's going to be very, very useful because, again, we don't have a lot of gear to go around all of our characters. Another skill that we taught was Peacock Strut. And this is a dancer skill. It's a buff that gives you 1.5 times elemental damage. And this is obviously going to be for Ophelia. Peacock Strut is going to be very important for the rest of the run. And essentially the theme of the rest of the run is really just to make your magic users very, very strong.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty easy to do. We get the multiplicative buff and a debuff, and then we get some special gear in the very, very late game that also adds another multiplier. So again, just doing some of those movement optimizations. The Gold Shore screen where Ophelia 3 takes place is very long north to south. So the runners wind up at the very far north end in the chapel, and then they teleport out to go to Northreach, which is going to be where Therian's Chapter 4 is located. This is just movement that they needed to do at some point in time, and it really could just be done at any point in the run, but by teleporting out and optimizing the little bit that you don't have to backtrack, you do actually save a pretty considerable amount of time over the course of the run.
Yeah, here we actually get the Cringe Chameleons. There are 2 chameleons that you always get on the screen. It's always going to be the same encounter, the first encounter you get on the screen. Fortunately for us, these chameleons don't like to attack us a lot. They like to lower your critical. And also they have one weakness, which is Axe. And fortunately for us, we have 2 merchants who are both able to use the AoE X attack called Bandits to break both of these chameleons very easily. And then we can just kill it with Ophelia. And again, we really want to start taking lots of encounters now, and we want to take encounters that we are going to get anyway. So this is one of the encounters. And Northreach, actually, like Sunny mentioned, we actually didn't use to... you can do it anytime. So actually, we didn't use to come to Northreach early. So this strat was actually one of the more recent strats as well. The main reason why you want to come to Northreach early is because of the Empowering Necklace, which you can purchase from the man at the entrance. This is an Empowering Bracelet, but it gives 1000 extra HP instead of 500, so it's 2 Empowering Bracelets in 1 accessory slot. It's going to be very useful. We're going to use it for the rest of the run. And it has a lot of benefits, not only just for bulk, but it also allows you to purchase fewer Empowering Bracelets, so it's good for your money route as well. The downside of going to Northreach early is that you actually lose some of the JP from the Lizards, the Chameleons fight, because at this point you still don't have the Badge of Friendship. But overall, it's very worth it to go to Northreach, not just for safety, but also for the Magic L, which we purchased in Northreach. It's going to give Ophelia more damage, and it's going to help out for some of the fights.
The good old Ophelia 3 encounter. So we see both of the runners get the exact same encounter. They're on the same RNG seed still. This is the most annoying encounter to break. It has 3 different enemies, different weaknesses. So we'll see our runners. They do want to take this because it is important to the D and XP round for the run. They do want to take 1 encounter in Ophelia Chapter 3. We'll see if they opt into taking an extra one on the inside.
I just want to point out that it's close, but it's actually not the same encounter because the curator's of a different element. But it's actually, like Sunny mentioned, it actually is the most annoying encounter to get because it's just very annoying to kill all of them. They have different weaknesses. So I believe both runners might still take the encounter inside. Because Teppo actually going for the save. So Teppo wants to skip the encounter inside to reduce the variance in this dungeon. Shin actually surprising the encounter and then chooses to escape because he took the encounter outside. So he saves so much time there. That is faster than doing a save and quit.
That was the ultimate YOLO strat. That was great. I love it.
I actually feel that getting an encounter outside is not too bad. You can skip one of the encounters that you take later, and you can just take the encounter inside anyway. But again, every runner has their own preferences, so there is benefit to what they're doing because these runners probably want to take encounters later when they have the Badge of Friendship, so it gives them more JP and XP. if they wanted to play it a bit riskier or they wanted to go a bit faster, they can choose to take both encounters here and then skip one of the encounters they can get later, which might cause a bit more time to kill.
Yeah, so here we are, Ophelia's Chapter 3. This is Mystery Man and Shady Figure. This encounter is 100% scripted. They have enough life on all of their characters to live through luminescence, and every action here is just taken in order. There's no variance here. The runners do set up to kill these guys with hired help veterans. The Chapter 3 bosses are starting to get to the point where they are getting a little bit chunky, but since this is a double boss encounter, the HP pool is kind of split between the two. So it's not as chunky as if you had a single boss.
まず、大打撃魔法で、ダメージを与えておいて、傭兵予備の公兵です。複数攻撃なので2人になります。強い。
So both of them finishing the fight at around the same time. So they're still very, very close to each other at this point. I feel like I've mentioned that a lot. I think that really just goes to show that like these runners are really of a very high caliber, that they're able to perform so consistently and consistently close to each other. I believe their times are actually pretty close on the leaderboard as well.
Yeah, I think if they make it through Ophelia 4 without getting ambushed, then they'll be pretty happy with this start. This is a very, very good marathon start for both the runners.
Yeah, definitely could have gone a lot worse. Their Whistlewoods were relatively quick, and so far their explorations have been pretty smooth, barring one death or so. But it's not anything to complain about.
Yeah, and here we have Therian's Chapter 2. Therian's Chapter 2 is actually really, really annoying to do. Noble Court here is split into two halves, and Therian's Chapter 2 sends you back and forth, I think 3 times, to go trigger the story prompt, do some story steals. So this actually gets split up into 3 different sections. So each time you're going to run all the way as far east into Noble Court as you can for the story prompts and the steals that they're doing here, purchases, and teleport out and go do something else, because that's kind of the name of the game at this point, is abusing that fast travel to do some exploration that they neglected doing earlier. So the exploration they're doing right now is going up to Duskwood, which is Cyrus's Chapter 4 section, and this is one of the scarier screens in the game. The encounter that you do get here is static, but the tree has 10,000 HP, which is a lot for this point in the game.
Yeah, this encounter is just annoying to get. Not only do you not have the Badge of Friendship yet, but it's also slower to kill than the one that we usually take later. So both of these runners probably hoping to skip this encounter. Shin getting the skip and Teppo also getting it, so both of them will do a save and quit here to skip the encounter. So that's pretty nice. Yeah, generally runners prefer to skip this encounter, and they do a save and quit to make it to Dust Barrel safely. You can actually YOLO, but it's not really worth it at this point. Teppo again choosing to pick up more money. He gets the copper pouch to south of the save point there, whereas Shin skips it. In this time, we're going to purchase this money item here. Surprisingly, some NPCs actually sell money items for less than you can sell them. It's kind of like a bit of lore, I guess. Like, for example, like this merchant doesn't... The lore is that behind this specific NPC is that he doesn't know what price to sell items at. So he sells them for less than they're actually valued. And then there's actually another guy in Northreach, which we purchased from earlier. He's an impoverished man. So the lore behind that NPC is that he is very poor, and I think he just sells things for very low amounts of money. Even though he's like right beside the shop, we can just turn it in for more money. But now we're back in Noble Court. We actually guided the aspiring actor earlier from the second screen. This is to do the second part of Kid's Quest. So nice thing about this quest is that it puts you right outside Noble Court. So you can go to Whisper Mill from there and do Ophelia's Chapter 4. So this is one of the details that I like about the route. And I always mention this when it comes to Galdera commentaries.
Yeah, and both of these runners just making their way up to Whisper Mill. They're going to be encountering the Plains Drakes here. This encounter is very easy to break.
Oh
and-
no,
Oh,
shit!
Chubby Kate!
Chubby!
Does he do it? Vets? Come
I
on.
think it'll run. I think it'll run. Yeah, he didn't deal enough damage.
Oh, drat. Okay, so that's going to put him a little bit behind on the XP-JP curve. I don't think it's that big of a deal at this point in the run. It's just something he's going to have to be cognizant of moving on to the second act of the Galdera speedrun.
Yeah, the chubby case really occurs. I really dislike chubby case because most of the times it just forces you to make very risky plays or just do things that you would normally not do. And in fact, this time Shin actually chooses to skip the encounter because he lost. He's gonna get basically half the amount of XP and JP that he usually gets, so he decided it's not worth it to kill that plane trick anymore. Instead, deciding to just run away and probably taking another encounter later.
Yeah,
Both of them are in Whisper Mill right now. They're going to purchase some healing items. Very important that you want to purchase the Herbs of Clamor here is to cure silence. There's some monsters and bosses later that are guaranteed to silence you. So you want to purchase those. You want to sell your items so you have enough money because we're going to need 4 vets on Matthias later.
Yeah, this is really, these upcoming 2 bosses are the first 2 like big money roadblocks of the run. The first chapter 4 boss and the first advanced boss really just they are quite a drain on your money here. Notably, the Ophelia route, you don't have access to the old coin, which you would if you had Cyrus as your sorcerer. So the money route for Ophelia is just a little bit tighter, and it really explains why these runners are taking a lot of that safety money.
Yeah, the commemorative coin is an item that you can scrutinize in Whisper Mill. Obviously, we don't have Cyrus in the party, so we can't scrutinize that. You can sell it for 25,000 leaves, so it's almost as much as 1 use of veterans. We don't have that, so we have to find some other ways to save more money. The main way is actually just to not use 1 extra set of hired help veterans. So one of the differences between the Ophelia and Cyrus Dry-Sang fight later is that the Ophelia route uses 6 veterans, whereas the Cyrus route uses 7. But in turn, the Ophelia, to compensate, the Ophelia route has to use more L-stones, as well as having a slightly quote-unquote riskier Dry-Sang fight. It's not risky in the sense that it can kill you, but you might have to spend some extra resources that might be useful for later if you get unlucky with your turn order.
Both runners are doing the menu before the encounter. I think that's a little hopeful. This encounter can very easily surprise you and just kill you, but neither runner gets the surprise attack. And I think Shin gets the. Oh no, Teppo got the better encounter here. The 3 doggies here are a little bit easier to kill. The mushroom just has a ton of HP, but the bats are pretty quick to kill.
Shin's encounter is actually not too bad. He did manage to break all of them. He's gonna be able to do a very big attack with Ophi here. So both of them actually doing that and killing that encounter very efficiently. But like Sunny said, the one with the 3 remnants, that one's pretty easy to break because you have 2 merchants and both of them are going to be able to break with hired help mercenaries. So that's one of the utilities of hired help is why it's so good. Not only do you get lots of damage with hired help veterans, but it's also very useful for breaking enemies. With mercenaries, which are AoE sword, and bandits, which are AoE axe. Dancers, which are AoE dagger, we don't use that too much, but it's also an option. So before oh, go ahead.
I was going to make sure both the runners get out of the cringe cultists fight. These cultists can randomly decide to end your run if they all 3 decide to throw greater soul stones. None of the runners have an issue with that. It is very, very rare, but it does happen. So it is unfortunate when you do see it. So they're going to be making quick work of this cultist encounter and head into the Matthias fight.
Yeah, I want to add on something that Sunny mentioned just now about doing the menu before the encounter. So you can do it before the encounter or after the encounter. So before the encounter, like Sunny mentioned, if you die to the encounter, you actually save less time. But you can, if you do it after the encounter, you can actually you lose less time if you die to the encounter because you don't have to do the menu again. But if you do it before the encounter, you can actually get a heal from that encounter, so it actually you can just choose to do that as well, so you don't have to heal again after the encounter. So Matthias fight, only Therion can die here. With the way that our party is set up here, all of our characters.
Oh no, we're good. We're good. Sorry, the
Yeah.
screen is small.
All of our party members are set up here to survive 2 hits, except for Therion. So Therion only dies if he gets hit by Matthias' normal attack first, and then he gets hit by Consuming Darkness. If he gets hit by Consuming Darkness first, he's going to be put under 30% HP, so that Alphen will always take the next attack for him. So this comes out to be a 132 chance that Therion can die. But the good thing is that even if Therion dies, it's very easy to recover the fight because Matthias doesn't do much. All he does is on the next turn, all he does is just attack you again. So you can very easily heal up and prepare to break him again. And this fight is very, very easy. You just break him, and then you use 4 vets on him, and that's the end of the fight. It's the end of the fight.
Yeah, and both runners going to be clocking in around a 110 Ophelia 4, which is a very, very respectable time.
Yeah, but this cute little cutscene that you have after Ophelia Chapter 4 is mandatory. You have to do it. Basically, you guide Liana to the top of the hill. And you actually can't warp out of this place. You can't even access your menu. You just have to do this cutscene before you can do anything.
It is very important that we do finish Ophelia 4, though. So now we're going to be doing a little bit more exploration before heading to the first optional boss of the run. But some of the runners have a couple of chores they got to do. We got to collect a little bit more money, as well as do some more exploration and unlock kind of the last little part of the map that we haven't explored yet.
Yeah, they're both actually stealing the flying helm here. So this is Zero's favorite item. The flying helm is one of the 2 hats that in this game that give you a critical modifier, a critical stat modifier. So critical is the stat that affects how likely you are to crit. There is another stat that affects how likely you are to crit. It's speed. So the higher your enemy speed or the higher your speed, the less likely it is to get crit or to crit an enemy.
So I'm really disappointed that neither runner went for the 55% steal on those soul stones there. You gotta go for it. It's the swag.
Shin's actually opting to steal the fire L there. Fire is gonna be a very useful element to have for your soul stone, so I like that Shin's going for that stone. I'm not sure if Teppo went for it. I didn't see. But I wouldn't be surprised if Teppo did. So far, he's been taking very safe choices. But yeah, more about that flying helm which I mentioned just now. So Drystang, which is the next boss we're gonna do, he has a very high speed stat even though he's sitting on a chair and he's very old. So it's actually not guaranteed for Alphen to crit Drystang with amputation. So normally amputation is a guaranteed crit on most enemies because it has a very high critical modifier of plus 100. But like I said, again, Drystang has so high speed that it's actually possible for Alphen to not crit him. So we get the flying helm there. It's a bit of extra insurance. I don't think any runner has ever missed a crit on Drystang with the flying helm. So that's why Zero's favorite item, because Zero missed the crit before.
It's a very easy fix just to grab that extra safety in Atlas Dam while you're running through there. But yeah, both our runners just doing some of the Alpha and 2 story quests here. This is another one that it just sends you back and forth, up and down Saints Bridge here. So you want to, or not Saints Bridge, Goldbar. And you want to make sure that you teleport out when you're at the furthest north point, and then you'll teleport back in when you want to go to finish off that Alphen chapter. Then the runners are going to be heading to Saints Bridge. We're buying some herbs here. So herbs clear the status ailments in this game. The most important one is Clamor, but they pick up some extras of the other ones here. There's some fringe status effects that can occur throughout the run, so just want to make sure that they're prepared for kind of whatever can pop up. And then they're going to be picking up the all-important Badge of Friendship. So this badge, it is only available after you complete Ophelia's Chapter 4. And you have to do this little side quest to get it. And it's an accessory that is going to double your JP gain when it is equipped on a character. So it's going to be equipped the entirety of the rest of the run.
I believe it's actually 1.5 times, but you're going to be able to double it later with with another support skill that we get. So Sunny's not wrong. We will be able to double our JP gain, but that's later into the run. For now, we're gonna settle with just a badge of friendship. The 1.5 times JP boost that it gives is going to be very, very helpful. It's going to speed up the route tremendously by giving us more JP so that we can learn more skills earlier. And right now we're going to head on. You notice that we're doing this branch of exploration after getting the friendship badge. That's because from this point on, we're going to start to be able to get encounters, and we want to have the friendship badge for those encounters. So we're going to pick up the Thief Shrine. You can get an encounter on the way here. If you get the encounter on the way here, it's kind of annoying because you don't have the badge yet. Ideally, you want to put the badge on in the same menu as the one you do after you get the Thief Shrine. And it's not that likely to get the Thief Shrine encounter anyway. So most of the times we just wait until we get the Thief Shrine until we do the menu.
You gotta do it after you get the nut in Riverford. Yeah, jokes aside. But I actually really, I kind of want to see what Shin does here. He is behind a little bit on the JP XP curve because the Plains Drake Chubby Cake kerfuffle. So we'll see if he takes the Orwell encounter here, which is a really, really nice backup. It's broken pretty easily and you can deal with it pretty fast.
We're gonna do some pretty important skill menuing here. Alphin's gonna get, I believe both of them are teaching Alphin Summon Strength. This is to give Alphin a bit more extra damage, and this is gonna be very relevant for the boss. If you don't have Summon Strength, the next boss is a range to kill. So you kind of want Summon Strength just to make that boss fight consistent. The next thing we do is we teach Therion Evil Ward. So 4 cleric skills unlocks Evil Ward. This is going to add a lot of consistency to our run because Evil Ward increases the chances you have to escape from encounters. In Ring 1 areas, it actually guarantees... in Chapter 1 and 2 areas, actually, it guarantees escape pretty much. I don't think I've ever seen anyone fail escapes from Chapter 1 or 2 areas with Evil Ward. For Chapters 3 and 4, it doesn't guarantee escape, but it adds a bit more consistency because it increases the chances of escaping.
Teppo just did the whole Orwell run in one go.
Oh, the Teppo got the YOLO? That's really that's really good. So Teppo has the option now of taking Dust Barrel encounter if he wants that extra JP. It's faster to go from Dust Barrel, but most runners go from Victor's Hollow because it's a lot likely to get the encounter if you go from Dust Barrel. Shin's getting the encounter. This encounter is one of the ones that we usually take. It's very easy to kill, and it's not very dangerous. But Teppo here is already in Riverford. He's gonna do that quest which we stole the Houselander records in Atlas Dam for. It gives lots of money, but most importantly, it gives us a revitalizing gem. This is an item that replenishes your HP, SP, and BP fully, and it's going to be very, very useful for one of the bosses later. In the worst case scenario, you actually have to use it on Dry Sand, so you have to work around that. But most of the times, you will be able to save it. And next, after Riverford, Teppo's going to be heading to the Archmage Shrine. So this is where we're going to challenge Drysang to unlock the Sorcerer class. And the Sorcerer is going to be very important for the rest of the run. We're going to want to move away from higher help veterans because it's going to start falling off in terms of damage. It's also very expensive to use, and we don't have enough money to use higher help veterans for every single boss fight in the game. So we're going to want to start relying on something else, and the Sorcerer class is perfect for that because it deals a lot of damage. All of its skills are AoE except Elemental Break. AoE skills are very useful because you can use it to kill encounters very quickly. And on top of that, you can also stack lots of buffs onto the Sorcerer to deal lots and lots of damage very quickly.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see, like, basically the entire time loss here is due to the unfortunate happening of Shin getting that chubby Kate on the way to Whisper Mill. Having to take that extra Orwell encounter is kind of just a little bit cringe right here, but they're still both very, very close in time.
Right, so more about the Dry-Sank fight. In the current route we use, the Ophelia Sorcerer route, it's a 6-turn, 6 vets fight. In previous iterations of the route, it used to be a 7-turn, 7 vets fight. And how that happened, how that went, was that with 7 turns, you want to have Wind and Tempest Amulets on your characters. This will reduce the wind damage done from one of Dry-Sank's spells, which he's guaranteed to use on either turn 6 or 7. And then you would tank the fight, you would tank the spell, and then you would kill Dry-Sank in 7 turns with 7 vets. But with a lot of routing and optimization, we can actually cut down the fight to 6 turns, so we can actually skip all the Tempest Amulets and the Wind Amulets, so that saves a lot of time having to pick those up. And then with now we have the 6 vets fight, so we save lots of money from there as well. And this was actually due to the efforts of both the English community, English-speaking community, as well as the Japanese community. I believe a Japanese runner, was it Kozu P, was the first one to do a 6-turn, 7 vets Dry-Sank fight with the Sorcerer route. And then eventually we lowered it down to 6-turn, 6 vets.
Yeah, and this fight might look scary, but as long as you're paying attention, it's 100% free. You do have to pay attention to the order of your merchants, just to make sure that you don't mess anything up on that end, and make sure you have the appropriate amount of BP going into the final break. But this is one that there's like absolutely no RNG. You can potentially have to use your Revitalizing Gem if you get bad turn order, but other than that, it's a very free first boss. And these are the optional super bosses. So there's 4 of these that are going to unlock the advanced jobs throughout the run, and we do fight all 4 of them. They're technically not required for Galdera, but they're all just so useful that they're worth taking the extra couple of minutes to go fight them.
Yep. So our party is set up in a way that all of our characters survive the first hit from Dry-Sank plus the spell afterwards, except Therion. So if Therion gets hit, you want to heal him before the end of the first break. But the turns are pretty tight, and you have to, in the worst case, you actually have to use the Revitalizing Gem, because there just aren't enough turns to both heal Therion and to give the palms to your merchants. So yeah, speaking of palms, in this fight we're going to use a lot of palms to give lots of BP to our merchants, so they're able to use lots and lots of vets. You notice that we also collect Dry-Sank. So collect is a skill that allows you to get lots of money from bosses, enemies actually. But bosses drop a lot of money, give a lot of money. So we want to start collecting bosses to fund our veterans, as well as to have enough money to purchase lots of items later. And with Snatch, which is a passive skill that we gave to Tressa, you get after unlocking 4 thief skills. This doubles the amount of money that you collect from bosses. So instead of collecting 40,000 leaves from Dry-Sank, you actually collect 80,000 leaves, and this allows you to have a lot more well, not flexibility when it comes to money route. It just gives you a lot more leeway when it comes to planning your money route, because you don't have to get as much money anymore because you collect more from bosses. And here's the really busted concoct that we talked about earlier. This is a Purifying Dust plus Essence of Pomegranate. It's a concoct from Elfin that gives 2 BP to your entire party. So it's a Palm M to your entire party. Normally palms are a single target, but with this concoct, you can give everyone 1 more big hit before the end of the fight. And this is one of the big reasons why Dry-Sank was able to be lowered to cut to 6 turns. Yeah, just one of the big reasons why Alphen is so useful.
Yeah, so while you were talking about money route, there's a couple of just important things to note with money. Once you're through Esmeralda, you're basically good on money, but the more you get, the more time you can save. There's a couple of notable items that you can purchase later on instead of doing their associated quest or going out of the way to to get them, so you wind up just purchasing them when you have more money, and it saves time. So our runners are going to be keeping kind of a mental tally of what their money count is. But right now, it looks like Teppo has a pretty considerable lead going into Tressa 2. So this is just it's a pretty low level area. So these encounters just kind of fall over pretty quickly to Ophelia, as you can see there. And we're just going to be kind of rushing through some of these lower level zones to get some more JP and some more XP.
Yeah, now we actually have the Sorcerer class, so Teppo's actually going to give that to Ophelia right now. We're going to teach Lux Conjure Rear, which is a free hit light spell. All the sword spells are free hit. And then we're actually going to teach Elemental Break as well, which is armor corrosive except for magic. And Lux Conjure Rear is very useful because most of the bosses that we fight before we get other element skills are weak to light. And Omar here is weak to ice and light as well. So these fights are going to go very similarly. It's going to follow roughly the same pattern. It's going to be Elemental Break on the first or second turn. And then we're going to break the boss, kill the ads, and then kill the boss on the third turn.
Yeah, this is where you see a lot of the execution come into play. Octopath has some very, very quick menus, especially on the PC version. There's really not very much input delay. So the runners can basically go as fast as their fingers can go on these menus. And then just kind of keeping track of where your cursor is just becomes very important to doing these bosses as quickly and optimally as possible.
Yep, you can see Ophelia makes very quick work of Omar there. Where Shin has just entered the second room in Warlock's Manse. We pick up the Hasty Helmet there. It's not actually going to be used until the end of the run, but it's something that we just get because we want a certain character layer to be as fast as possible. And it's just there, and you kind of want to take the encounter anyway. Shin actually choosing to skip the encounter even though he is slightly down on XP JP. I believe he might be fine though, so I wouldn't necessarily say I disagree with skipping that encounter.
Yeah, and the next big JP check is only just going to be to save a little bit of time. It's really going to be about 40 minutes from now that we have the first hard one where they need to get surpassing power.
Yeah,
so he still has some time to make up that JP.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was referring to. By taking the encounter here, you're typically pretty set for that threshold. But you can also just try to save the time early and take the encounter later anyway, because you're very likely to get encountered. So I actually do agree with what Shin's doing as well. And I also haven't been paying very close attention to what encounters specifically that they've taken. Shin probably has a much better idea of his current JP situation.
Yeah, in general, there are some backups as well. So even if you do miss your JP threshold, you'll know it before you go into the fight. So one thing you mentioned about the Sorcerer attacks being 3 attacks, that is one really convenient way that we kind of get around the damage cap. So for those of you that have played this game, there is an initial damage cap at 9,999. You can't do any more damage than that. So obviously an attack that hits 3 times, you could do basically 30,000 damage. Before you get surpassing power, which is way deep into the warrior tree, and it's one of the main reasons that we're going to be grinding out just all of this JP in the early game, so we can do more damage in the late game.
You see runners, both our runners, making our stop here in Noble Court just to progress with Therion's very, very long Chapter 2 before making our way over to Tressa's Chapter 3 dungeon. Teppo actually getting the cringe encounter outside of the Forbidden Grotto. The Forgotten Grotto. Very unlikely encounter to get. Actually fails to kill the crabs. Yeah, this encounter is just is an encounter that bamboozles a lot of runners just because it's so unlikely to get. You almost never ever get it.
Yeah, no, this one isn't even on my notes because it's just you don't get it.
Exactly. It's just something that most runners do not factor in. I've only ever I can count the number of times I've ever seen that encounter like in one hand even. I don't even need two hands. I can count one hand. The
Yeah,
number of
that's
times I've
including
seen that encounter.
a couple hundred Tressa attempts too, right?
Yeah, not just from Galdera, this is also running Tressa single story. That's how unlikely that encounter is.
Yeah, so Teppo gets a pretty easy to kill encounter here. The bats are actually really handy to see. If you have any character that goes before, you can break. So you see him here doing that with Alphen. You could also chuck your Ice M stone that you have as a backup to break those bats, and then that way the enemies just really aren't getting very many attacks. Not that like they're particularly deadly at this point, but saving the animation time is really handy. He cleans up that encounter very nicely.
Yeah. The worst encounter you can get here is the elementals. You can clear it with a fire or wind soulstone if you want to, which should speed up the fight considerably. If you don't though, they use very slow attacks, very slow spells.
Yeah, and Shin has gained some ground too because of that extra encounter outside. So they were on the same screen there for just a hot second.
So here's Venom Tooth Tiger. He's also one of the. It's also one of the bosses that just doesn't like to do anything.
Yeah, just a very consistent boss. We do want to make sure to get the collect off here, and I believe there's a pattern where you save a soul stone, but Quadro would know better than me.
We actually don't use a soul stone in this fight. So what we do is we use an elemental break on the turn, on the second turn, and then we use one Vets plus Ignis Ardere on the third turn to kill it very easily. Shin actually seemed to struggle a bit with this encounter. Like I mentioned, this is the annoying encounter, the two elementals. On top of being the slowest encounter to get if it gets its spells off, it's also the encounter that gives the least amount of XP JP.
He's going the brute force of just peacocking and then killing it with Ophelia.
Yeah, exactly. So actually the elementals die to a ×2 Ignis Ardere, so Shin could have done that. I believe. I'm not sure his turn order. Or you can kill the elementals with a Wind L or a Fire L as well, which would make the fight a lot faster.
Yeah, that's just really one of those things that comes with experience with Galdera. Learning the encounter tables for these areas that we're going to be taking encounters pretty much regardless, and knowing the fastest way to clear them. It's just one of those, like, Galdera as a whole has a pretty high knowledge barrier, as well as like things you have to track during the run. So it's a pretty intimidating category, but it's a lot of fun to do. And it's like, as for a 3.5 hour run, there's really no like huge downtime points.
Yeah, part of the reason why this category appeals to so many runners, including these two runners, is that Galdera has a very high skill expression cap. Essentially, the better you are at the game and the more knowledge you have, the better you're going to do with Galdera. And the better resource management you have, a JPXP management that you have, the better you're going to do with the route. And essentially, a lot of time save in the Galdera route actually comes from being able to kill encounters quickly, as well as knowing which encounters you can take and skip. So ideally, you want to get enough JP to meet the minimum the minimum amount of JP to hit every threshold, and you can skip every encounter on top of that. So far, Shin's doing a pretty good job with his JP. I think he's chosen to skip a few encounters so far. He probably identifies that he has enough JP to meet the thresholds later. So he is saving time over Teppo on some of these encounters. But Teppo is also playing very safely, so that's also a very nice thing to see from runners, especially in a marathon setting. And you can never go wrong with safety. A lot of decisions are actually routed in just for safety in this route. For example, the Dust Barrel reset at Victor's Hollow. You can YOLO it, but most runners choose to take it.
Doesn't look like we're going to see a force shield skip. Sad.
Yeah, unfortunately, none of them are going for the force shield skip, I believe. This force shield is an item which you can get in the Grand Port series here. It's one of the best shields in the game, gives a lot of defense and elemental defense. It's mainly going to be used for surviving critical attacks such as Winnehode's Dialagaras later, as well as certain double taps like Darius and Red Eye. But recently we figured out that with by giving the Adamantine shield that we normally give to Alphen to Therion, and also giving Therion an extra nut, you can actually skip the force shield, which saves you about 18 seconds. The downside is that some of the fights become slightly riskier, as well as losing access to one wind source in which you get in Grandport Sewers, and the screen being a bit more riskier to pass through. But it's an 18 seconds time save, so it's something that is a pretty good option if you wanted to save time. But I like that both of these runners are getting the force shoot either way. It's a very good item, and frankly, 18 seconds only really matters if you're going for a very optimized time. It's definitely not essential if you're going for like just want to finish a run, or even just getting a sub 330 in Galdera, which is considered to be kind of like a holy grail for Galdera times.
Yeah, especially in a marathon run, these guys are just definitely taking all those safety strats that they have. It would be not very fun to die on Red Eye and lose a couple of minutes due to getting double tapped. But yeah, both of our runners making their way through Esmeralda. Alphen is making up some damage here, doing some of the heavy lifting, just kind of getting that extra damage in because Ophelia is not quite powered up all the way yet, and Esmeralda does have a lot of HP. So using Vet, using Amputate, using Ignis, taking down that Tressa's Chapter 4 boss.
So I want to actually talk about the equipment menu that we do before Esmeralda. You notice that we did a few things. So we gave the Unerring Bracelet to Ophi. This is because we need accuracy on her because she's going to be using Elemental Break on Esmeralda. This is very important because it takes off one shield, but it also can miss, and Esmeralda has very high evasion. So you want that Unerring Bracelet to ensure she doesn't miss. Fortunately for us, both Esmeralda's attacks actually put Ophi into under 30% HP most of the times. So taking off the necklace actually is beneficial as well because it makes her double tap proof most of the times. We also take off the empowering bracelet from Therion. So this might seem counterintuitive because it's supposed to give him more HP for survivability, but it actually increases his survivability in this instance because it's gonna make both of Esmeralda's attacks put him under 30% HP exactly. With Red Blade, it normally deals a lot more damage, but with the High House Armor on Therion, it actually decreases fire elemental damage by 25%. So it's going to deal roughly the same amount of damage as the normal attack here. So the Red Blade just barely doesn't kill Therion, and the normal attack just puts him under 30%.
Alright.
And then yeah, sorry. For Tressa, we give her the necklace, and then Alphen we give him some of the equipment we picked up earlier, so that makes both of them double tap proof. And go ahead, Sunny.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say one of the quirks of Galdera is you do actually have to watch the credits. The first traveler that you pick, when you finish their chapter 4, you get credits, and credits in this game last 8 minutes. So we like to have good wellness here, and you get an 8-minute stretch break about halfway through the run. So I know I'm going to take the cue from our runner here and take a quick break, feed my dogs here. So I will be back, and we'll let them run out the credits here. So enjoy.
Yeah, I can see that Teppo actually taking that much needed bathroom break. I'll probably take one as well after Sunny gets back. But this is a great time for runners to relax a bit. The early game is very, very volatile when it comes to the RNG and the variants that it has. So this credit sequence is actually a very well appreciated break, and you can actually, like I said, also use it to go to the bathroom. It's very conveniently timed in the middle of the run. This is a roughly 3 hour 40 minutes to 3 hour 45 minutes category. And this comes very conveniently in the middle of the run. Compared to the Cyrus route, where since you do Cyrus's chapter 4 at the end of the run, you actually only get the bathroom break at like the 3 hour mark. So some people actually consider this like a benefit of the Ophelia route over the Cyrus route as well.
何何
乾杯でも。
余裕ぶっこきすぎじゃないですかね。ちょっと。
So nice thing about the credits is that
乾いたし。
firstly the music's really good.
じゃあもう一個一個
The second thing is you actually get to see the every boss that you fought so far.
増加まあ与える
This is one disadvantage that the Ophelia route has, because so far you haven't killed many bosses, so your credits aren't going to be as as nice to watch as the one in the Cyrus route, because at that point you've killed a lot of bosses,
非常に重要となって
so you get to see lots of flashbacks.
ダメージを増やすサポートアビリティもあるんですが、
But the credits theme is actually like kind of like a remix of all the different themes in the different areas, and you go from Ophelia, the snowlands, frostlands actually, all the way to the woodlands, and then at the end you get a little jingle that's specific to every character that you start with. So we start with Tressa, so we get to hear Tressa's jingle at the end, and I've heard that jingle many times from my speedrunning in Octopath, because I've played a lot of Tressa single story as well as Galdera, both of which have Tressa starts.
その時にいたパーティーのメンバーとか、ジョブとかも全部反映されてるんですよ。
最初見てすげえ
Let me see if I can understand what the Japanese runners are
ク
saying.
リアしちゃうと、スッカスカになっちゃうんで、
そうなんですよね。
もしこれからねプレイされる方いるんだったら、主人公、最初に選んだ、主人公の4章をクリアしたタイミングでエンディングに入っていくので、その、4章を最後に回して、他の章をクリアしてからエンディングを見ましょ
そうするとね、すごい盛大なエンディングというか、感動的なね。ちょっとガルデラのね、やつだと、こうやって隙間がいっぱい空いちゃうので。
他のカテゴリーだともうエンディング入った段階で、ストップなんですけども、ガルデラならではですね。
大体公平で終わってるエンディング。
そうなっちゃうんですよね、やっぱり。
あ、オフィリア4章のマティアスくんですね。さあ、どうやって倒すのかな。公平追われてる。パン。いやー、小平さん強いですね。
ほとんど小平の活躍じゃないですかね。シンさんの方もなんか、これはオフィリア2章ですね。小平で倒してます。
エンディングあと4分ぐらいあるんじゃないかな。
解説さんトイレ大丈夫ですかって言われたんですけど、大丈夫です。
本当です。ちょっと行ってきても大丈夫ですよ。
行かないです。
本当ですか。
行かないです。ちゃんと事前に済ませてますんで。大丈夫です。
いやー、ここまで乗り越えちゃえばね。あとは。
So we're about, I believe this is about halfway into the credit sequence. I'm actually going to take a quick bathroom break just to make sure that I'm good for the rest of the commentary actually. And hopefully by that time Sunny's back as well.
今までは歩兵に頼っていかないと火力が足りなかったんですけど、これからオフィリアの火力がどんどん上がっていくんで、だんだん歩兵に頼らなくなっていくので。
トイレ行っとけって言われて、行かないよ。
トイレ
多分もっと早く行くべきだったんだと思うよ。もう多分そろそろ終わりも近づいてきてるので。
すごい。
間に合うかもしれないけどさ。
全然間に合いますよ、まだ。まだだってトリス3勝ですよ、これ。い
や、もう終わりかけなんで、行きますよ。もうそれはさすがに。もうこのまま解説に行きますよ。
ツイートすんの忘れた。
ツイッターやる余裕もあんのかよって。
いや、トイレに行ける優しい RTA って僕はツイートしようとしてたんですよ。
まだ間に合うじゃないですか。
まだ間に合う。
まだ間に合うじゃない。
いや、こんなに優しい RTA あります？こんな真ん中で。
なかなか聞かないですよね。中間にトイレ行く時間あるっていうのも。で、ツイッターもやる余裕があって。
そうなんです。昔やったんですけど、ツイッターやりすぎて、エンディング終わりに間に合わないっていう事故があって。
いや、その側はちょっと許されないですよ。
I believe we're going to reach the end of the credits soon.
ちょっと見れないんですけど。
Well, for Teppo's side, because I just saw Esmeralda. It's the last boss that we that we defeated. And it goes in the chronological order, so it goes from the first boss that you beat to the end, to the last one.
主人公で選んだやつを最後にクリアするので、全部見れるんですけど。
So right now Teppo is slightly ahead of Shin, but it can still swing over in Shin's favor. There's still lots of things that can happen in the middle game as well as the end game. In the middle game, it's pretty stable, but that also means that if you get an unlucky encounter or an unlucky failed escape, it can set you back a lot compared to if you didn't. And in the end game, a lot of the RNG is in the final boss, because the final boss is actually pretty hard, and it actually can just straight up kill you without you being able to do anything about it. So fortunately for us, it's not that likely for that to happen, but it's still a possibility.
All right.
But Teppo's just done with the credits, and he's actually going to head into Alphen's Chapter 2 right now. So we did the first part just now, so all we have to do now is inquire the last man on the first screen. And I believe Teppo's taking this encounter because he is a bit behind on XPJP. So I do like that Teppo is choosing to kill this encounter. Teppo did skip the Orwell encounter just now, so I like that play by Teppo to take this encounter.
Yeah, and really, I think he was a little bit of JP short. But this is the point in the run where you are starting to get some of those like late game skills. Oh, unlucky, gets the encounter on the inside as well. But yeah, this is the point in the run where you're starting to get some of those late game skills. And the Sorcerer class, the abilities cost 2,000 JP each. So the reason for getting all this JP is very needed, because the Sorcerer's skills, they lock some of the most powerful passive skills behind them, and it's really going to be the source of most of the damage in the run.
Yep, so these next few bosses are going to look very similar as well to Omar. In fact, I believe Vanessa and Orlick are literally the same fight, except you just use different spells. Yeah, over here is Glacius. Vanessa's ads actually have a lot of HP, so you have to use Glacius here to hit their weakness for more damage. Vanessa herself doesn't have a lot of HP, so you can use an Ignis afterwards, and that will take her out very cleanly.
Yeah, very clean fight from Teppo there. I believe that was the fastest pattern.
Shin skipping the encounter, so he has some time to he has an opportunity to gain some time over Teppo here. And we purchased the Lapis Lazuli, if you notice, in Grandport. It's a very expensive item. Shin also getting the encounter inside. How unlucky is that? But purchased the very expensive Lapis Lazuli in Grandport. This is actually to complete a quest, which is the third part of Kit's quest. And this is actually outside at Moonstrike Coast, and the closest town to that is Goldshore, so that's why we do Alphen's Chapter 2 first, and then right after that we can just head over to the Moonstrike Coast to turn in that quest item. And along the way we're also going to steal the Primeval Robe from this lady here. And the Primeval Robe is a very nice piece of item equipment to have. It gives a lot of defense and elemental defense, and also gives a nice boost in SP. That SP boost is not going to be relevant until the final boss, but it essentially allows you to finish the final boss in the ideal circumstances with 1 HP and 1 SP on your character.
Yeah, and it's kind of ridiculous that the steal rate on that is 100%, because the Primeval Robe is actually a pretty decent item. All of the kit quest items have higher than normal steal rates.
Yeah, there's actually an item that you can steal from the Impresario called the Oasis Hat. It used to be in the Cyrus Work route, but we don't have the opportunity to get that in the Ophelia route. Technically, you do it the non-Kate route, but it's still kind of out of the way, and it's not needed for this route because we are pretty smart with our equipment setup.
Yeah, and here comes one of the biggest points of runner preference. So the Mance here, you can technically get no encounter. So we'll see if the runners choose to take an encounter, if they choose to save an exit, or if they choose to YOLO it.
ようやくボス戦に進める。
I believe with Evil Ward, with Evil Ward, you're almost guaranteed to escape from it. So, most of the times you do get the encounter here, it's actually very unlikely to skip it. But because we have Evil Ward, it's not too bad to get the encounter. In a character game like Therion Single Story, you almost always just do the save and quit to skip this encounter. And I like that Teppo again is killing this encounter because he did skip the Orwell encounter, and that one gives a lot of JP and XP and JP. JP is the main thing you want at this point. XP you don't have to worry until later, and most of the times, if you take the normal amount of encounters, XP is not going to be an issue. Later on, when you have the Captain Smash that boosts your XP gain, that's when XP starts to get a lot more important to get from fights. Right now, it doesn't really matter, especially from Chapter 2 areas. XP gain is not that big. But JP is what you're after. The next thing that we want to teach to Ophelia is Elemental 8. This comes after unlocking 4 Sorcerer skills. And we're going to teach that very soon after the next boss, after Orlick. And Elemental 8 is going to be very important because it gives you a 1.5 times boost to your elemental damage. Any skill that uses elemental attack will get a 1.5 times boost to the damage with Elemental 8. The downside is that you have to you get double the XP cost, so XP management becomes a bit tighter. But the raw damage increase is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, as you see, like Quadra just talking about all of these multiplicative damage modifiers. So you're getting some from passives, you're getting some from buffs and debuffs. Eventually, we're going to get some elemental weapons and get some more multiplication in there, and it really is just going to make the damage like skyrocket. You get to some pretty insane numbers by the final boss.
So notice that after Therion's Chapter 2, you actually spawn in Boulderfall. So you can go down to the lower level in Boulderfall and actually steal this magic M from Omar here. Omar is an NPC that spawns in lower Boulderfall after you finish Tressa's Chapter 4. By completing characters Chapter 4, it actually unlocks like some of the NPCs that they meet in their story. And Omar here only comes after Tressa's Chapter 4, and he has a magic M. This is going to be important because Ophi has less base elemental attack compared to Cyrus. So we actually need this magic M to hit the damage thresholds that Cyrus was able to hit in the Cyrus Sorcerer bout. And conveniently enough, the tavern's right beside, and we can just use that to get Cyrus back in the party, so we can do Cyrus's chapters now. We want to do Cyrus's chapters now because his bosses give a lot of JP, and that's going to be very important to not only get Elemental 8, but also the next JP threshold after that.
Yeah, that's one of the things with the Ophelia Sorcerer route is having to do these random tavern swaps. It seems a little weird, but it does wind up being pretty quick, especially when the taverns are in pretty convenient locations in most of the swaps that we do.
Yep, so that magic M is only needed by Ophelia. Cyrus doesn't get that magic M, so we do take a bit of time loss here. But again, it's very worth it to get this magic M, and you still save a lot of time by not having Cyrus in your party. So in that tavern menu, we just put all the gear on Cyrus because he's very, very squishy. And we want to give him as much gear as we can. We give him the necklace as well as the bracelet just to beef him up, the Primeval Robe and the Hasty Helm just to give him a bit more defense. I like that both runners actually give the bracelet to Therion as well. Technically it's optional and it's faster to do, it's slower to less optimal to equip the bracelet. But Cyrus's Chapter 3 boss is very dangerous compared to some of the other bosses that we faced so far. He's one of the only bosses in this run that can kill your characters. So I like that the runners are choosing to take the safer option to give Therion a bracelet there, which would essentially guarantee that he gets through that fight unscathed or without dying. unless you get very unlucky with your turn orders.
Yeah, and this part of the run is basically just busy work. At this point in the run, like Chapter 2 bosses really don't pose any threat, and the notable exception of Cyrus's Chapter 3 boss, the Chapter 3 bosses don't really pose any threat. But we do need to get through all of these various chapters, and we might as well get the JP and XP that we need to set up for the next set of super bosses by doing encounters that we have to do anyway. So just by doing these like kind of these chores, I kind of call it, you're getting set up to fight Steora, who's going to be the next super boss, and one of the notable big choke points of the run.
レベル上がるかな。上がんない。
はい、ということで、事件が解決されました。
Notice we also purchased a fort nut from one of the ladies in Query Quest. These fort nuts increase physical damage, and we're gonna need that for our end game setup. So even though physical is bait, it's the best strategy by far for the second phase of Galdera. But for the most part of the run, we'll be using elemental damage. But you definitely need to pick up those fort nuts. Because if you don't, you are going to suffer a lot on the final boss. There are certain damage thresholds you need to hit, and if you don't hit those thresholds, you will get wiped.
Really though, if there were enough E-attack items, we would just use 2 E-attack characters, but there's not. Alright,
Now
so
here in Stoneguard. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Sunny.
I was just gonna say, yeah, just making the way through Cyrus's Chapter 3. Cyrus has these little like sleuth sections where you have to answer various questions. They are the same every single time, and it depends on what chapter you're in. So in Chapter 3, the answer is always 3. So you can use that little trick to see where you're going to answer the questions for Cyrus. As well as Stoneguard is notable because it has a bunch of large soul stones that are very easy to access. And at this point in the run, they're a pretty high steal percentage, so they're basically free. This is just a reload on the soul stones from the ones that we burned earlier in the run.
Yeah, they come in very handy elements here. Tobias here has a Fire L. Again, the Fire L's are going to be very useful. Aaron on the screen above has Light L and Shadow L. Shadows are going to be very important. They're very scarce, so you want to conserve your Shadow L's as much as possible. Because there's a certain fight later which you can only use Shadow L's for. Not only, but Shadow L's are the most efficient way to kill that enemy. Light's also very useful for some of the fights later. Light and fire.
Yeah, it's just a restock on the way. You have to kind of traverse through this area regardless. This is one where it's not very efficient to teleport out because you're like right by the screen transition for the story prompt. So you do the whole thing in one run and then head into the cellar. So you're gonna see on the left-hand side of your screen, Teppo's gonna be making his way through the cellar here on his way to Yvonne. This is an area you can get an encounter, and this encounter can be ranged from easy to pretty annoying. And at this point, you probably don't need any extra JP or XP, so it's just kind of annoying if you do get it. You would prefer to skip it.
Yeah, unfortunately, since this is a chapter 3 area, it's not guaranteed to escape from it. And if you fail to escape, it's very, very bad because it's very, very slow. The groups are very large. You have 4 party members, and they tend to like to use spells that take a lot of time. Okay, so here we have Yvonne. Cyrus is the squishiest member, so you basically don't want to see him getting hit. The ads like to use this skill called Tornado. It hits everyone in the party for heavy wind elemental damage. And Cyrus can die if he gets hit by Yvonne, who deals a lot of damage with his physical attack. And then he gets hit by another attack into a tornado. Or just 2 tornadoes as well. And on top of that, the ads are going before Ophelia on the second turn. They can get more turns and more chances to tornado you. So this is a fight that things can go really wrong. Fortunately, Teppo gets a very good fight here. And you also see, with the power of Elemental A, we are starting to hit the damage cap. So at this point, we're starting to get a bit gated by our damage cap. And so we want to find ways to get around the damage cap as soon as possible. And they'll come pretty shortly. Shin actually gets the encounter here, but manages to get the YOLO fleet, so very good for him. And he's gonna head to Yvonne right now. So let's see if Shin managed to get a very good Yvonne fight as well. And oh, he gets one ad before Ophelia on the second turn. So this could be a bit Monka. Could be a bit dangerous. Cyrus also can miss Yvonne. That's why you want to boost all the way up to break him. I've actually had I had the honors of missing Yvonne twice with Cyrus before, so that was very, very annoying. Okay, but here Shin gets through the fight pretty well. Oh, he missed. Looks like he missed the Elemental A on Ophi, so he didn't deal as much damage.
That's still okay. Yvonne doesn't really do anything after you kill his ads, so hopefully Shin just does a backup here, and has enough game knowledge to get through there. On Teppo's side, so Teppo's picking up Hanet, who's the game's hunter character, and you can probably speak to this a little bit more than me. Is there a reason that he went to Hanet after Cyrus 3 instead of after finishing Therion 2?
Okay, yeah, sure. So essentially, you want Cyrus, at this point, you don't need Cyrus in your party anymore, and you want to have both Alphen and Therion in your party to start their chapters later. So that's why you wait until after Cyrus 3 to pick Hanet up. And so this is a strat that's actually relatively recent. It wasn't routed in the original Ophi Sorcerer route. It's called Early Hanet. Essentially, we used to use Olbrick to challenge alphas, which is a quest you need to unlock Galdera. But by using Olbrick, you actually have to warp one additional time to Saint's Bridge and then run all the way to two very long screens. So you'll see that later. So by using Hanet, we can actually do that earlier. And while we're in Saint's Bridge doing Alphen's Chapter 3, we can actually do Alpha's quest as well. It'll all make sense in a bit, so we'll see that very shortly once Teppo gets there. But essentially what we do is this is the only time we remove Tressa from the party, and we have to do it because we have to set our party up in a way that we can start our parties, some of the party members, Chapter 3s, Alphen and Therion specifically, and then we obviously need Ophi in the party to kill encounters and Gisarma, and we need Hanet to provoke Alphas here. So Alphas, you just use either Shadow or Fire Owl for him. That's where the Soulstones are useful. And it's one of the, like I said, it's one of the side quests that are essential in completing the unlocking Galdera.
Yeah, so basically the thought behind it, right, is stacking the Alphen 3 story prompts with basically the Galdera story. So the Alpha story taking place in Saint's Bridge and Darter of the Dark God, and you do those while you're doing the Alphen 3 story prompts. So instead of running to Saint's Bridge and running the length of it twice, you're doing it now just once.
Yeah, so I'll walk everyone through why her early Hanet is a lot more optimal. And so if you can pay attention to Teppo's screen right now. Okay, this first pass through Saint's Bridge, we're not actually going to see it yet. So in the next pass through Saint's Bridge, we'll see early Hanet being put to work, or why it's so good. Right now we want to come to Saint's Bridge early because Alphen's Chapter 3 is kind of like Therion's Chapter 2. It's atrociously long and you have to go between both screens like so many times. So we go to Saint's Bridge first, then we go to Wellspring. Wellspring to start Therion's Chapter 3. And while we're here, we can also make use of the fact that the tavern's just here, and we have to steal an item in the tavern anyway, so we get Tressa back because we don't need Hanet anymore. We only needed Hanet to challenge, to provoke alphas. So if I didn't explain just now, provoke and challenge are path actions that you can use to bring NPCs into battle. And this is not useful for the speedrun. The only use is to do specific story quests and also challenge, provoke alphas. But there are some NPCs that are guarding like buildings. Some of these buildings have very good items in them, or NPCs that sell very good items or quest items and stuff like that. So in the game, it's quite important. In the casual setting, it's quite important. But in the speedrun, it's not useful. We don't do any provokes or challenges to get any of these optional stuff.
Yeah, and just again separating up Therian 3 and Alphen 3 into a couple of different sections. In Therian 3, you have to head to the black market over here. Unfortunately, Teppo gets the encounter. Not the biggest deal in the world, but then you have to teleport out anyway. So it's might as well teleport to Saints Bridge and finish up the next part of Alphen 3. So you kind of alternate doing the various story prompts there.
Yeah, so right now we can start paying attention to Teppo's side of the screen. We see the Lilac spawns here in Saints Bridge. She spawns here after you finish the first part of Alphas' quest in Boulderfall, and then you can acquire Alphas with Alphen because he's in your party right now, and then you can acquire this lady, who's part of Alphen's side quest. Alphen's chapter 3 quest. And then gonna go over to this next screen. Teppo's choosing to purchase this Palm L. I like that. Notices that he is only on 1 reputation, so if Darion fails his final 80% steal, that will lose him a lot of time. He inquires this last NPC for Alphen's quest here. And now we want to pay attention to where he is on the screen. So Teppo has to go outside the church. This is to finish the Alphas' quest here. And then right after that, he wants to go into the church to purchase the battle-tested staff. So the battle-tested staff is one of the strongest staffs in the game. I believe it's the staff with the highest elemental attack in the game. And it's very important because it's going to allow Ophi to deal a lot more damage. So if you were to do Alphas' quest later on with Outbreak, you have to run all the way back here. You have to come to Sagebridge again, and you have to run all the way back to the church. Whereas with early Hanet, you can do Alphas' quest at the same time as you purchase the BT staff. So it saves a lot of running through Saints Bridge.
Yeah, and in general, efficiency is just kind of the name of the game here. We don't have a lot of side quests that we have to do, but there is the couple that you need to unlock Galdera, and that just happens to be one of them. And then the BT staff is just an insanely good staff, especially because it does lower this. Well, it doesn't lower the speed. It doesn't have the speed boost like the knowledge staff. So for a couple of bosses where you don't want Ophelia going first, you're going to want to have the BT staff on her because it's going to potentially push her back in the line. So we'll see right here if Teppo does the BT staff equip and the empowering necklace for safety.
Yeah, so we notice how the timing of this menu, how Teppo does this menu after this encounter. That's because he wants knowledge staff on Ophi so she can go first and kill the encounter there. But then afterwards you start wanting Ophi to go slow, so he puts the BT staff on Ophi. And yeah, like Sunny said, the BT staff doesn't have a speed boost, but it's good because actually for these fights we want Ophi to go slow so we can get the buffs onto Ophi before she moves. And this is going to allow us to speed up the fights oddly enough. So Gareth here, he doesn't have a lot of HP for a Chapter 3 boss. He only has 38,000 HP. It's actually lower than a certain Chapter 2 boss. Lord of the Forest, Hanet Chapter 2 boss. So this fight's very simple, especially if you get Ophi last, or Ophi pretty late. You can just use Alphin's Concoct and then use the Glacius. As long as you get one form of buff, either like one extra BP or a Peacock onto Ophi before her first move, you can always just kill with a Ignis Ardere on the second turn.
Yeah,
So
I
it's a very nice Scarab fight from Teppo's side.
I find these next two bosses, Gareth and Miguel, are just very similar in the way that they are dealt with, outside of the potential leg hold trap for the other boss. But yeah, just kind of finishing up these chapter 3 bosses that are in the way, and these are going to set up for the next super boss. So Teppo has one more to chunk through, and then Shin is making good progress on the early Haunted quests doing and getting the BT staff. So these runners are still fairly close. Shin notably lost some time on that Yvonne misclick, which is unfortunate, but he did manage to finish up that fight, so it wasn't the biggest deal in the world.
To do one more big menu before Steora. Steora is the next secret boss we're going to challenge. And there's very good reason why we want to do Steora right now. She unlocks the Starseer job, which is not the best job when it comes to its attacking prowess, but it gives the best support skills in the game by far when it comes to boosting your damage. Boost Start, which gives you one extra boost point at the start of the turn, essentially cutting every fight in the game afterwards by one turn. And then BP Eater, which is an unconditional boost to your damage by 1.5 times. Essentially, every attack that you use that you boost, it gains 1.5 times damage. So essentially unconditional, because every time you want to do damage, you're going to be boosting anyway. Steora is one of the hardest, it's actually the hardest fight in the run, and it's also the easiest to make mistakes on. Oh no, Teppo gets very unlucky with that Therion. He snaps himself out, that's really good. If he uses the Concoct here with Alphin, he can put Therion before, okay. Okay, so there, that works as well. Teppo's going for a different Steora strat here. But essentially, in this fight, what you want to do is you want to set up turn 2 Elfrix. Elfrix is the Divine Skill of the Cleric class. We only just got enough JP to teach it here. It allows us to get past the damage cap by doubling our hits. Essentially, with Elfrix, every time you cast a skill, it will be cast twice. So it allows us to double our damage by hitting by using 2 Ignis Ardares in one go. And then this is also useful for taking off shields of Steora. So as you're going to see, after this first break, Steora is going to have 3 possible patterns where she gives herself different amounts of shields, and also changes her weaknesses. The 4 is the best, 8's okay, and 12 is the worst. So Teppo gets the worst pattern here, and also very unlucky turn order. Ophi going first on the next turn. So he's going to have to do a very much slower fight here. Essentially, Teppo's going to need to use Ignis Ardere here, and probably want to break on the next turn. Teppo does not have
Peacock?
Peacock Strut,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
No, he does have Peacock Strut, but it's not doing as much damage, I feel.
And he broke early. That's going to be probably a rip. Yeah, that's definitely a rip. So Steora is going to come out of break and kill him.
That's very, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, but Teppo did throw a lot of soul stones, so he might be able to kill Steora here if he.
He's short damage. He's short.
Oh no, he does have enough damage.
What? How many?
Teppo coming out of the clutch.
That's some big brain play right there.
The clutch save.
Yeah, especially on the 12 shield there. That's a pretty crazy strat. It's going to make his soul stones a little bit tighter for the remainder of the run, but not having to redo Steora is a big time save.
Yeah, and being able to finish that fight in 5 turns as well. With that very unlucky turn order, runners might just choose to default to a 6-turn fight, basically delaying Stereo's break and killing on on turn 6. Because the backup for that, as you can see, is Teppo had to throw a lot of stones. But Teppo might have a better grasp on his stone route. So he might still have enough stones for later, especially since he probably got the extra Fire L just now in Whisper Mill. And meanwhile, Shin seems to have a very smooth Stereo fight here. So we can see on Shin's side, he wants to get Peacock on Ophi, and then Elfrix. And now, this is probably a standard Stereo fight. So with Elfrix, Ophi's going to be able to take 6 shields off of Stereo. So this is one very handy use of Elfrix. And then he's going to probably just use Mercs here for the break. And then here's where the Revitalizing Gem comes very useful. After Ophi's first big Ignis here, you can use the Revitalizing Gem to heal her all the way back up, as well as replenish her BP at the same time. So yeah, this should be a wrap for Shin right after the next break. Over on Teppo's side, we got the Miguel fight, so this is a very easy fight. Just want to make sure you pay attention to your turn order. If you get unlucky, you skip, you don't get to leg hold Miguel, which loses you a bit of time in animation, but he can't actually kill you. He doesn't do enough damage. And if you get some good turn order, you can actually save some resources by not having to palm Therion, so you can donate BP to him. And Teppo accidentally using the wrong spell here. Fortunately, fortunately Miguel, like I say, doesn't do a lot of damage, so he can't really kill you. So with one more spell, he's gonna be able to take Miguel out here. Shin actually getting the best pattern on Stereo, getting the 4-shoot one, where she's weak to Tenebrae. And so he's able to clean Stereo up very, very handily. And right after Stereo, we're gonna immediately teach Hard Worker to Alphen. So this is a badge of friendship, except it's in the support skill form. So from this point onwards, we're gonna have double the JP gain instead of 1.5 times. Very, very helpful, and why we also do Stereo very early. We're actually not gonna use Booster and BP either just yet. We unlock the Sorcerer job mainly for Hard Worker at this point.
Yeah, and so Shin made up actually a good amount of ground there, getting what is the fastest pattern on Steora, as well as Teppo kind of having a little bit of trouble with Miguel there. So both these runners are, the race is tightening for sure. Teppo was definitely pretty far into the lead, but Shin is gaining ground rapidly. So Teppo on the left is making his way through Alphen 4. This is one of the longer, like more cutscene chapters in the game, but thankfully Octopath we can skip cutscenes, so we just hold B. But Alphen's characters like to talk a lot, so he's just going to be running around Orwell for the next minute or so. And then Shin getting unlucky with an encounter on the way to Miguel.
Yeah, I got a Cringe Chameleons. Yeah, I'm very happy with how both runners played out the Stereo fight. Like I mentioned, it's a fight that's very easily chokeable. And both runners, as well, Teppo doing commentary as well, very good job by both runners. We actually see a route variation by the Japanese here. So normally what we would do, or what the English speaking community does, is we give the Hunter to Alphen, and then we give the Dancer to Tressa. By doing it this way, letting Tressa stay on Hunter and letting Alphen stay on Dancer, it actually saves menuing time. The upside of giving Alphen Hunter is that you have a bit more consistent Ogre Eagle fight when it comes to saving resources. Speaking of Ogre Eagle, that's Alphen's Chapter 4 boss. Ogre Eagle is probably the second hardest boss next to Stereo, and that's because Ogre Eagle can also status you. So I forgot to mention, but you probably saw what happened there to Teppo. On turn 1, Stereo always confuses someone, and depending on who she confuses, especially if she confuses the person that goes right after her, it can get very dicey, because Stereo does a lot of damage and can kill you very easily if you give her turns. Ogre Eagle's sort of similar, except it's the chances of Ogre Eagle giving you a bad status is 2 in 7. So it can give you 7 random effects, 2 of which are bad, namely Sleep and Confusion. But depending on your turn order, you can actually get around this and also try to save resources in this fight. So, Ogre Eagle, this fight's, okay, Teppo didn't get bad turn order, so he's gonna have a very good fight here. You wanna get Peacock onto Ophelia on the first turn, and then Leg Hold if possible. But in this case, Teppo identifies that he doesn't have to Leg Hold Eagle, so he decided to give BP to Therion instead. And then with Elemental Break, he's going to have the fastest possible fight, as well as having to spend the fewest resources. With Elemental Break, you're able to kill Eagle with a ×3 Glacius Galdera, as well as a ×3 spell on the the third turn. So yeah, Teppo here correctly identifying that he doesn't need a Palm L anymore. And he wants to collect Eagle here because it gives a lot of money and it's very convenient to collect Eagle. And with a ×3 Ignis Ardare here, it's going to be enough to take Eagle out. So a very, very nice, very, very clean fight from Teppo's side. Yeah.
I guess now's a good time to mention the Curious Bloom routing too. So depending on what happens on these next couple of bosses, so Ogre Eagle, Steora, and then Winnie and Balagar, you potentially need 5 Curious Blooms to basically finish out the run. So by skipping the one on Steora, he's not going to have to pick up the extra here right after Ogre Eagle. So it's going to save just a little bit of time.
Yeah, Curious Blooms are why Alpha's so good. The 2 main uses of Curious Bloom is to prevent status ailments and also to use Curious Incense, which is an AoE Leg Hold plus 1 hit of ice. So 1 Curious Bloom is absolutely required on Steora. And Curious Incense can also be useful for Steora and Ogre Eagle to Leg Hold, as well as take 1 hit off with the ice weakness. And on Balagar, you can actually use Soothing Seed plus Curious Bloom to fix turn orders. And we'll get to that later. But that's one of the reasons, that's one of the big reasons why Alpha's so good, because of being able to use Curious Blooms. We're actually going to be heading to the next Secret Job boss, Secret Job fight here, Winnehild. She unlocks the War Master class. And Teppo actually getting a Revenant, but his JP is very high at this point, so he doesn't need to kill it. I think Teppo wants to kill it anyway, so that's fine.
Is he short for Surpassing Power?
No, he's not. He has 5,000 JP, so it's fine.
Okay,
but Teppo's probably just killing this for his swag, just to flex on the Revenant.
All my homies hate Revenants.
Revenants are very annoying because they're very hard to kill. They have a lot of HP, so it's very slow to kill them. And also, yeah, so most of the times I'm gonna skip them. And they don't give a lot of JP anyway, so it's not like killing them is very good. So most of the time, if you have to take an encounter and get a Revenant, it's very annoying.
So here you see another menu. So on the left, Teppo is doing the all-important Surpassing Power menu. So this is what all of that JP grind is for. And moving into the Winnehild fight, and this is when you're going to see just all of the multipliers just start combining and some ridiculous damage.
Yeah, we get Elephants, which is the Scholar Divine skill at the same time as we get Surpassing Power, so it syncs up very nicely. Elephants is a skill that takes an AoE skill, like the sword spells, and then concentrates it on one target but doubles the damage. So now we have that, and we have Elfrix. We can essentially quadruple our damage, and with Peacock Strut, that gives another 1.5 times, so it's a 6-tuple boost. And with Elemental Break, we have another 1.5 times, so it's a 9 times boost. That's a lot of boosts. And also Elemental Aid and Augment the Elements, yada yada yada, lots of boosts. Basically, you know that we'll be doing lots and lots of damage.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see on the tiny little screens here for Discord, but it looks like this is going to be just fine. Throw on both Divines onto Ophelia, get your Elemental Break and your Peacock Strut, and he does an extra turn here, but it looks like it's going to be just fine.
RTA Ignis.
I love what Teppo did. So he did a variation of the strat. So normally what we would do in Winhill is Curious Incense. This takes one shield off of her as well as applying Lekko onto her. Lekko is a status that makes your opponents move last. But he chose to Peacock Ophi on the first turn, and then use Alphen to put Therion before Ophi on the last turn. And by doing this, he could defend with Therion and use Therion to break Winhill.
Yes, that saves a Curious Bloom there. I think it was because Tressa was poisoned there, so you had to heal her.
そして次、エヴァーホールドに行って、さらに、最後の、上級ジョブですね。ルームマスターの取得へ向かいます。
So the reason why we do Winhills first is because the War Master class has access to a support skill known as extra experience, and as you might be able to tell, it gives us extra experience. And from this point onwards, it's going to be very important to make sure that we get enough experience. So not only do we have to juggle our JP, but we also have to juggle our experience, and there's very good reason for that. The main person we need to get the experience on is Therion. In this chapter 4, there's a steal, which is very infamous for being 3% in the single stories segments categories, as well as the half game categories. In this category, you have more levels on Therion, so the steal chance gets increased to 55% if he's level 45. If he's one level lower at level 44, this chance becomes 15%. So it's a 40% decrease. So that's one of the big reasons why you want Therion to hit level 45 by the time his chapter 4 rolls around. And also the fact that having more levels increases your damage anyway, because there's a hidden multiplier that affects your damage that increases with your level.
Yeah, so right, like Shin is making short work of Winhild, and then Teppo on the left-hand side is onto Balagar. So on Balagar, it's going to be basically the same strategy as Winhild, but in order to break as well as fix your turn order, Tressa is going to use Bandits here because Bandits can't miss, and then Alphen is going to use the Curious Bloom, and I actually don't remember the concoct, but it moves Tressa up to make sure that she goes in front of Ophelia and can divine, and then Ophelia does her big blast.
Yeah, so in this case, I believe Teppo actually used Panther Dance. So this moves Tressa one slot up. So if she's going right after Ophi, you can use Panther Dance to save the Curious Bloom. If, let's say, there's like one character in between or two characters in between, Alphen could use the Soothing Seed plus Curious Bloom Concoct to move Tressa all the way to the start of the turn. So this is why Alphen's so good for this fight. And all the secret job boss fights in general. In this turn, in this fight, if you get a bad turn order, Alphen will fix that turn order. And that's Balagar. That's the last secret job boss we fight. And interestingly enough, we actually used to do Balagar first, before Winhild. And the reason for that is because getting the Rune Lord class gives you access to a skill known as Transfer Rune, and you couple this with a merchant skill known as Sidestep, which gives you guaranteed evasion from physical hits. And since all of Winhild's attacks are physical, you can essentially use Transfer Rune plus Sidestep to cheese Winhild. And it used to be, I believe, like a 6 or 7 turn fight, and eventually we cut it down to a 6 turn, then a 4 turn. And then now we have a 3 turn fight, which is obviously a lot faster, and also a lot better for the route because you get access to extra experience early. Shin getting the funny Revenant in the Balagar Shrine, whereas Teppo is now in Albrecht Chapter 1.
Funny
so
Revenant.
Right, I know, comedian Revenants. So after getting all the secret job bosses, Alphen can take a very well-deserved break after his long stint in the party, and we can actually start to rush through all the other character stories now that we haven't picked up yet. So we start off with Albrecht, because finishing Albrecht Chapter 4 gives you access to the Captain's Badge, which is like the Friendship Badge except for extra experience as well. So after Obric's chapter, we're going to have 2 times experience and 2 times JP.
And
yeah,
Obric's chapters are just notorious for being really, really long. So his chapter 1 isn't too bad, but his chapter 2 has required challenges, and then it has like a little mini boss gauntlet. And then his chapter 3 has a boss gauntlet, has a lizard gauntlet before the actual boss. So it's nice to get it out of the way. And then when you're left with Primrose and Hana, it's just boss rush.
Yeah, and there's a very specific reason. There's a very specific reason why we're picking up characters in specific orders. Well, not a specific reason. There are reasons why we picked up characters in this specific order. Like I mentioned, the Captain's Badge, and later on, you'll see why. Basically, finishing the character stories unlocks more NPCs in certain areas which we can purchase items from and also do quests. So we'll explain that when we get there. But right now, since Alphin's not a party anymore, Teppo's gonna have to give a hard worker to Therion, as well as boost start. That's gonna be useful for later.
And Ulbrich gets put onto the trusty merchant class, so we are back to the beginning of the run where we use hired help to cheese everything. So Ulbrich, now that we have a ton of money, he gets to do these 2 required challenges, and instead of fighting them fair, he's just going to call in some outside help and one-shot them.
Yeah, he's going to flex his unbending wallet by hiring mercenaries, hiring veterans to take out these fights for him. But this is by far the fastest way to clear these fights. The alternate strat is to break them and then use a soul stone, but it's not only slower, but it also uses a soul stone, which are very important for this run. So definitely just use veterans for these fights.
Yeah, and then we'll be coming up on the boss gauntlet for Ulbrich Chapter 2. And this is one of the areas where turn order is going to make the most difference. So you really want to be able to get some buffs or some BP onto Ophelia before the bosses, because then she could one-shot them. If you get Ophelia first, you have to wait basically an entire cycle of the boss's attacks, as well as passing on your characters. So getting lucky here can save a pretty considerable amount of time. It's actually kind of shocking.
Yeah, and I didn't notice this earlier, but I noticed that Shin in the early game was down on, or not down, but he chose to skip certain encounters, but he still was able to get the required JP for surpassing power. So Shin's play to skip encounters earlier really paid off. So I like that. I like that play by Shin.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with just the recognizing that the Chubby K was bait and fleeing from the Plans Drake encounter.
Chubby K's a curse. Chubby K's just a curse. I like very few runs that I've actually gotten a Chubby K to actually finish. There's also the thing that getting a Chubby K just makes you play worse, because like you start to get nervous because you're in a very good position.
Especially Chubby K's level up timings.
Yeah, Chubby K's give you lots of money, so you can skip lots of stuff later. Also gives you lots of JP and XP, so you can skip lots of encounters, which obviously saves a lot of time, especially if you get the Chubby K early. But it also forces you to play very risky, so you can stand to lose all that time you gained, and worse. Teppo's making his way through the Ulbrich Gauntlet here. You want the BT staff on Ophi for these fights, because you want Ophi to go as late as possible so you can get BP onto her for more damage.
And speed is an illusion in Octopath, so really you just leave the knowledge staff on her. She goes second anyway, it's fine.
Notice that Shin used the dagger with Therion there on Archibald. This is just to fix a range. Tenebrae is a range at this level. So with that, at this point probably has Gideon's dagger on. So that will deal a bit more damage to Archibald. I also forgot that Gideon's dagger, I'm not sure if the runners equipped it here. It's an item we pick up from Gideon, haha. But we give it to Therion because it gives him a large increase in his speed, so this makes him more likely to go before Ophi. And it matters for fights like these where you want to give Ophi more BP. And also, it gives you more leeway in Stereo and Eagle because in case of bad status, you can actually have more turns, free turns to recover from that.
Yeah, and as Sino was pointing out in chat, Shin did accidentally learn the wrong merchant skill on Ulbrich, so he wasn't able to use hired help on those duels, which so it's costing quite a few soul stones, and notably a shadow large soul stone. So Alic might potentially be a clutch point for him.
Unfortunately, the non-Kate route, which the runners are using, does have access to one more shadow stone. So I think they might still be fine, but it's definitely tighter. You definitely do not want to spend more soul stones than you absolutely have to. And this is actually an optimization of the early Haunted route as well. So right after Ulbricht's Chapter 2, right after Gustav, actually, we can actually work back to Saintbridge to purchase the Fort L there. And again, you want to purchase that Fort L because it's going to be so essential for damage later. And in the previous, in the earlier Ophi route, we would purchase the Fort L plus do Alphys's quest at the same time. So even though you still have to warp back to Saint's Bridge to purchase the Fort L, it's still faster to do it this way because you still saving all that time running to the church. And also just warping out after fighting Gustav saves time anyway because you don't have to run all the way back to the first screen.
I'm a fan of Fort L during the Riverford prompts.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always just done it after Gustav. You can do it either way.
Alright, so Shin is making his way through the gauntlet. Did fix that Ulbrich issue with hired help, so shouldn't be having any further issues with the upcoming challenges that Ulbrich has to do. And Teppo is making his way through Ulbrich's Chapter 3. This notably has 2 lizard encounters, and they can be just a little bit annoying. Again, you're really focusing on getting good turnover on Ophelia, so he's going to be switching the knowledge staff onto her because she can just one-shot the encounters if she goes first.
Yeah, I think the Ulbrich Chapter 2 was essentially the last place we needed the BT staff on. From this point onwards, we're only going to have the BT staff on Ophi until Cyrus's Chapter 4. And that's because we don't need the extra power from the BT staff anymore. From this point on, we're going to be so powerful that we can just one-shot all of the bosses, even with the knowledge staff. And having that extra speed is very useful because there are going to be encounters which we want to kill later, and having Ophi go first is obviously a lot faster than having her go last. So speaking of which, if you have the BT staff on Ophi for these fights, you can stand to lose like 20 seconds in each fight or something. Might be a bit faster on PC, so you might lose like 10 to 15 seconds. But it's still time loss that you could otherwise have mitigated if you have the knowledge staff on. The reason for that is because if Ophi goes last, the lizards like to buff themselves, and that takes a lot of time. It has a very long animation, as well as all your characters having to defend before Ophi.
Yeah, at this point in the run, it's trying to optimize how quickly you can kill these encounters, especially once you start getting boost start on your various carry characters. Just being able to clear the encounter on your first character before they even get to act is really, really fast.
The Teppo taking the bottom path in Ulbrich 3, you have no idea which is faster, the bottom or the top path. Personally, I take the top path, but I think the bottom path is probably the same. You get a bit more diagonal movement with the bottom path, but you also have to move down at the start, so it evens out.
Top path's correct. Hold do it. Alright, so here we got the Lizard Meme Chief. This guy really doesn't do anything, but notably he's going to be dropping the Lizardman Axe, which it buffs your lightning damage. So we're going to see a little bit of use of that in this run with the using the extra lightning damage on a large soul stone.
I want to point out that you have to pay attention to how this guy looks like the Komodo height emote.
Oh, it totally
that's-
does.
Yeah, that's one great thing about this boss.
We did have a question in chat. So the question was, what does Galdera mean? So Galdera is the game's final super boss, which is unlocked by completing all 8 Travelers 4 stories, or all 8 Travelers 4 chapter stories, as well as there's a couple of side quests, and then you have to go through the entire Gate of Finis and defeat Galdera.
Oh, expressing his satisfaction with Ulbrich using 2 sets of vets to mow down his good buddy Earhart there. Teppo actually choosing to use the double vet strat instead of the Shadow L into vets 4 strat. So this is technically faster, but it uses 1 extra set of vets, which costs 30,000 more leaves. And again, leaves are important for later because there's going to be items that we want to purchase. But doing it this way, you save 1 Shadow L, which could be useful. And we might see Shin adopt the same approach, seeing as he had to chuck 1 Shadow L just now.
Yeah, so they're separated by basically an entire Ulbrich chapter, which is one of the longer chapters to be separated by. But this is still far from over. Shin can definitely come back with some good RNG in the last hour of this run.
Yeah, notably Hana's chapters can be annoying as well when it comes to random encounters. And just getting good turn orders, Shin can start to gain a bit of time with each fight if he gets lucky.
He teleports out there just to start the Ali quest. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interchangeable. You can go to Saintsbridge there as well, and you can just go to Ali's quest after Gustav. But yeah, you want to start Ali's quest because there are some post-game quests that you have to speak to certain NPCs to even start the quest. So we want to go to Sunshade to start that quest as early as possible, because later on we'll be in Marcelim, and that's where the NPC is going to spawn, and we want to guide that while we're there.
Teppo making quick work of Red Hat. Again, just all of these Ulbrich challenges, you just chuck a bunch of vets at, and they fall pretty quickly. But we're coming up on what my least favorite menu of the game, where you have to swap around Starseer and learn Boost Start on a couple of your characters. It's just really annoying.
Yeah, this is the big JP threshold, probably the biggest JP threshold of the run. You really want to make sure you have enough JP for this menu, otherwise you have to kill 1 encounter in Ulbrich's Chapter 4, which does take a bit of time. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to give BP Eater and Boost Star to both Ophi and Tressa here. And now that 3 of our party members have both Therion and Tressa have Boost Start, that's going to give us access to turn 2 Divine skills. And then Ophi's going to have Boost Start as well as BP Eater is going to boost her damage even further and allow her to do a whole bunch of damage on turn 2. We aren't even going to bother using Elemental Break on bosses anymore, just because we have the raw power from Elephants and Alfrix. Teppo actually getting the cringe encounter in the sewers here. Fortunately gets the YOLO Flea. And you notice in that menu we also gave Ulbrich a bunch of skills. So Hang Tough, this is the first character that we give Hang Tough to in this route. Hang Tough is a skill that allows any character to survive any attack as long as they're above 30% HP to begin with. And this is going to allow a lot of squishier characters, such as Ulbrich right now, to survive attacks that they normally would have no business surviving. And afterwards we gave him the Thief job as well. Gave him Fleet Foot, which increases his speed. Essentially, we're going to want to stack as much speed on Ulbrich as possible, and this is going to be a setup for hopefully an ideal pattern on the final boss.
Yeah, that's a pretty recent development as well. Just kind of setting up Ulbrich, Haunit, and Primrose during their chapters for Galdera. It saves you time because you're just doing the menu right there anyway, and it saves brain power. Like there's less to remember now in the final Galdera menu.
はい、ということでね。はい。じゃあ、一旦目に
So, okay, this is Werner. Pay attention to how he has a horse in his mans.
ただ、
Very important.
But, yeah, that's very important.
公表していきます。
But essentially what you want to do is just you want to break Werner with Tonitrus and Ulbrich. And if you get good turn order, you can even just kill Werner with Tonitrus on the second turn and skip having to break him.
これは何事もなく
But you can see how powerful Ophelia is at the moment.
RTA イグニス。
And it's still not enough power. We need more.
Yeah, we need more. This is still not enough damage. There's still other multipliers that we can be putting on. So we're gonna exploit that fully in the final phase, in the final fight.
知らない。
But for this, for now, this is sufficient.
はい、ということで、オルベリク4勝クリアとなりました。
So we're basically down. If you're keeping track at home, we have Haunit and Primrose, their 4 chapter stories, and then Darius and Lucia. So 10 more chapters to go. And these are all going to go very, very quick. There's not really a whole lot of running around during these. All the setup is done, and we're going.
ここでパーティーの入れ替えが入ります。
Yeah, right now just gotta run a few more errands. We want to get the captain's badge, and to do that, we need Alphen or Cyrus in the party. We use Alphen because Inquire has 1 less text box than Scrutinize. Also, it's a 98% chance with Scrutinize, so technically, you have 2% chance of failing that. And we want Han in the party to set her up to immediately start her chapter 2 when we warp to Saints Stoneguard. Teppo almost going Stoneguard there. But we want to go to Wellspring first to get the captain's badge. And here Earhart also spawns after Ulbrich's chapter 4. And he has the BT Blade. The BT Blade is probably the best sword in the game. Not only does it have lots and lots of physical attack, but it also increases all physical damage dealt by the character that's equipping it by 30%. And that's going to be very, very useful. We're even going to equip the BT Blade onto Therion right now, just so that, just to get a bit of extra damage to fix some of the damage thresholds that Ophi can't hit for these bosses.
Alright, so moving into Haunit's chapters, this is where we say bye-bye to all of the rest of our soulstones, because Haunit's path action is Provoke. Unfortunately, Haunit can't cheat like Ulbrich and use veterans. She can only use items and her summons. So basically all of the soulstone hoarding that has been done up to this point is to be able to breeze through these provokes as quickly as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, Han's Pokemon aren't very strong, and it takes a lot of time to even capture them, and you don't get very good ones anyway. So the best way to deal with all these provokes is just Soulstones. The first one here is Nathan's Bodyguard. He's weak to fire, and that's where you need the Firestones for. If you have the Lizard King's Axe, you can actually put it on Haunit as well, and that allows you to substitute Thunderstones in place of Fires, because it gives the same amount of damage boost as hitting an elemental weakness. So Teppo has enough Firestones for this fight. Oh, you can just equip it in the menu just now. We do a Tavern swap to get Hana into the party. At the same time, we also gear Therion up with the Captain's Badge and also the BT Sword. And also the Empowering Necklace. This is to set him up for to survive double taps later. And right after Ulbrich Chapter 4, Archibald spawns in Stoneguard, so that's why we do Ulbrich Chapter first. And we purchased a double Tomahawk from him. This is a very niche piece of equipment, and it's very unique. What a double Tomahawk does is that every hit with Axe that you do actually does 2 hits instead. So with a ×4 boosted attack, you actually do 8 hits. And conveniently enough, the first phase of Galdera has 8 shields and is weak to Axe, so we can use a ×4 Axe with double Tomahawk to break all 8 shields.
Also a lot of stuff in the gauntlet that's weak to Axe too. It's like, for some reason, they decided Axe was the weakness to give it to everything.
Yeah. So it's very useful to have the double tomahawk. I might also add that Teppo got a discount on the BT blade, so that's a very useful discount to have. Every time Tressa purchases an item, she has a chance to get a discount where you get a percentage of the original price of the item. And there's an item later which you want to purchase, which is the Viper Dagger, and you might not have enough damage. You might not have enough money for that sometimes, especially if you spend a lot of money with Teppo using double vet strat on Earhart. So getting discounts like this is very helpful to purchase the Viper Dagger early. If you don't have enough money later, you can purchase it like later on the run in Cyrus Chapter 4, but it takes a lot more walking to get to the NPC that sells that. So you want to purchase it earlier, if possible.
Yeah, notably using the double vet strat on Earhart. That money, super tight.
Yeah, but Teppo also did pick up a lot of money in the early game, so
yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
He should be fine, especially with that discount. You can see Theron using its BT blade here to just whack the Lord of the Forest. Lord of the Forest is one of the interesting bosses where killing the main boss also kills the ads. Normally you have to kill the ads separately. But in this case, we can just use elephants to concentrate all the damage on Lord of the Forest. Takes out the ads at the same time. And you notice we're using elephants instead of Alfrigs. That's because Alfrigs gives you one extra animation of every spell that Ophi uses, so it's faster to use elephants. And it gives the same increase in damage.
And Lord of the Forest and Simeon 1 are actually impossible to target, so sometimes you just hit the ad and lose much time.
Well, the good thing about Lord of the Forest is that the cursor is automatically on Lord of the Forest, unless you targeted something else earlier. But for Simeon later, I have had many instances where I've hit the puppet. Because we need to target a puppet before that to do something else.
Oh, both of them are in Stone Guard. That's a matchup, right?
Yeah, Shin starting chapter 2, Teppo just finishing chapter 2, and we'll see if Shin has enough stones here.
It's gonna be tight.
Shin only has one Fire L. He probably has to use the Thunder L for this one. Oh, he has a lot of Shadow L's. He has 4 Shadow L's. How do you even have so many Shadow L's? I have no idea. Did he get like Shadow L drops from something? Oh, looks like Shin's having to do a slower fight with slightly more soul stones. No, he should be fine. I think he should be fine. He has like a ton of Shadow L's.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That's
Teppo's coming out on Alaic, the fight that you have to throw all your shadows on. Oh, looks like Hana got panic slashed. Alaic is annoying sometimes because it can panic slash you and then it can miss. I've actually had a case where I got panic slashed, so I got confused. And then Hanan hit Alaic, so she didn't snap herself out. And Alaic was going to snap Hanan out, but then he missed. So I had to like wait a few more turns.
It's not as bad as Hana's single story though, where Alaic can just end your run.
Yeah, exactly. In Hana's single story, this fight's a nightmare. It's not even the worst part of the run, it's just the beginning of the worst part of the run. The worst part of the run is this chapter 3 here, where the screen's incredibly long and the save point is inconveniently located all the way at the end, so you can do a save and quit. Fortunately in Galdera we have a lot of levels and Evil Ward, so you can just run from it, but in Hana's single story it's a nightmare to get past the screen.
Yeah, Shin is burning a lot of his Shadow L's though on these earlier provokes, so Alaic might be pretty yikes.
As long as Shin has 1 or 2 Shadow L's, he will be fine as long as he has either a Thunder L or another L stone. I think in this case he might be fine.
Alright, so we're coming up on Dragon.
Yeah, Shin probably opted to do the double Earhart shred, that's why he had so many Shadow Stones at the end.
Gotcha.
Double Vets Earhart.
So Dragon is another boss that just conveniently lets you set up on the first turn. Just decides not to attack because it's a menacing dragon and you must be menaced by it. But yeah, that gives us a turn to do whatever you want. And since we have boost start on our couple characters with divines, just stack everything and kill this thing in one turn again.
I want to applaud Teppo for doing the Holy Light skip. So essentially, if you get a good turn order, namely, oh, so you have the.
He has a double tomahawk.
He has a
on.
double tomahawk
What?
on. That's why.
What is this?
No, I thought Teppo was doing the base Holy Light strat. So essentially, what you can do is normally you would need Theria to use a Holy Light to break one shield off, so Hane can break Dragon. But if Ophi is going before the Dragon on the second turn, you can actually skip the Holy Light and kill the Dragon with Lux Conjurer instead. So you can save like 2 seconds or something, not having to use Holy Light.
Yeah, so that double tomahawk strat was actually a thing a while back, but it fell out of favor because you don't need it, and eventually you just have to unequip it and put it on Alphen anyway. So might as well not even give it to Hane in the first place.
Yeah, I think the main part is that you need to do one extra menu. I don't imagine. Yeah, he has to do one extra menu to put that on. Well, it's whatever.
Maybe the animation time of Holy Light.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, spells do have a slower animation than just attack, so it does make sense when you think about it that way.
Yeah,
so now we're in Marcelim.
Looks like Teppo is maintaining his 1 chapter lead, so not gaining any ground, not losing any ground.
Yeah, we see that Teppo's guiding Maruf here. This is the NPC that spawns after you talk to Ali. You need to guide Maruf because the completing that quest gives you the Trade Wind Spear. So the Trade Wind Spear is like the Lizard King axe, except it boosts your wind damage instead. And you want to guide Maruf now because right after Hane's chapter 4, you're going to pick up Prim. So as you're back in Sunshade, picking up Prim, you can also get the Trade Wind Spear.
Very convenient stacking of quests that you need to do there that you don't get to do in Cyrus.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the other optimizations that the Ophi Sorc route has. Because with Cyrus, you don't have Ophi in the party or Primrose in the party at this point. So you have to warp back 1 additional time to Marcelim to guide Maruf. And then you have to warp back 1 more time to Sunshade.
Here we have the awful ruins of Eld, and Teppo getting the first screen, no encounter. The second screen is very, very likely to get an encounter, and he might actually want the XP. There's a couple of checks that you do for your XP here to make sure that Therian's going to hit level 45, and this is one encounter you can optionally take. But getting through to Red Eye here without an encounter is very, very fast.
Gets the encounter right before Red Eye. That's fine. He has to take the encounter anyway. If you get 2 encounter here, it's fine as well. You can see Teppo actually choosing to break the encounter just to get a bit more XP. It does cost you a bit of time because the break animation is slow, but every time you break an enemy, it gives you 10% more XP per fight.
Want Shin getting the bear. Runs from it just fine though, no big deal. At Red Eye, this boss can actually be a nightmare casually, but we have enough damage that it really just doesn't matter. Ophelia is just going to blast it away, 1 Ignis to break, and then again stack all the divines and go from there.
Notice Teppo actually used Rain of Arrows. That's because Rain of Arrows is a guaranteed free hit. It bypasses, it has its own accuracy check, so it's not affected by blind there. It's slower to do it, but if Hane is blinded, it's the best option. If Hane is not blinded, you can just use bow ×2 to break instead, which is faster. Red Eye is actually one of the fights that can actually kill people. Both Hane and Ophi can get double tapped. You have to force shit on Therion to ensure he doesn't get double tapped, and Tressa is just naturally very bulky. So that was a very good Red Eye fight. Could have gone faster if he got to break before Red Eye got done anything, but nobody died. That's the best you can ask for, realistically. And now we're back in Marcelim. We can do the Trade Wind Spear quest, and now we can pick up Prim, the final character that we pick up in this run. And Prim's chapters are gonna go by very quickly. Prim has some of the shortest chapters in the game. And yeah, just really easy bosses. Teppo's just selling some items here just to make sure he has enough money for both the BT Axe purchase as well as the Viper Dagger purchase. So yeah, we have to purchase the BT Axe later in Victor's Hollow. And it's just another item that increases your elemental damage, in this case, Ice and Thunder. And that's going to be nice for Ophi later. We're going to give her the Rune Lord class and also Balor's Blade, which deals lots of elemental damage. And we can use the BT Axe to increase her damage done by Balor's Blade. And now we have the most useless encounter in the entire run, at a point where we are so overleveled that this encounter is just very, very worthless, extremely worthless.
Just a brood encounter.
Yeah. And speaking of rude, here we have Halganish. And we're just gonna stomp all over his face by using one of the weakest spells in the game, Luminescence, to take him out.
Yeah, this is just cleanup mode. Strong enough to do everything in Primrose's chapters with no real resistance. So just gonna kind of cut through and finish off chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and then do some side quests. And then we got a couple more chapter 4 bosses, and then we're on to the boss gauntlet.
Yep, so here we're back in Snow. And Prim's Chapter 2 is pretty uneventful, except for this one travel banner here in this house. It's the best travel banner in the game.
He's got to press plus here. It's a time save.
Yeah, but Teppo is not going for that. But yeah, Prim's Chapter 2, nothing much that can go wrong. Just mainly if you get better turn orders, you can save like a couple of seconds in the fight. Like this split is probably the most stable split in the entire run. There is so little variance in this split that yeah, generally if you're off your goal, it's probably by like less than 5 seconds, I think.
Yep. No encounter possibility. The boss just dies in one turn. Like, not a lot that can go wrong. And Shin just making short work of this Hana Chapter 4 encounter.
Shin also choosing to break this encounter. Very interesting.
Let's see if his red eye is as nice.
Yeah, I would think that they would want to save the break animation, but I guess the XP is more important for them.
I don't think either of them are low on XP though. They've been taking a lot of extra encounters.
Yeah, so in general, you want to take like 2 encounters. So you want to take 104 encounter, and then you want to take 1 encounter later in Prim Free. If you take both in 104, you can actually skip the one in Prim Free, so it's kind of just like give or take. And if you skip both in 104, you can actually try to force one in Prim 4, so that's a backup strat.
And Teppo even killed the haha funny Revenant.
Yeah. Oh, Teppo got a slightly worse Rufus fight here. Getting roundhouse kick, which is has slow animation. Oh, he doesn't kill.
Was he missing Peacock?
No, I think Teppo might have. I don't know. I didn't see exactly what Teppo did. Maybe didn't use the BT blade on Rufus there.
Not the biggest deal in the world. A couple seconds.
Yeah, it's just a couple of seconds. Again, BT blade's kind of useful for just hitting the damage thresholds. And before we... Oh, Teppo guy! Teppo forgetting to guide a lake here.
He started it, he didn't guide.
Yeah, it's better than guiding him without starting it though, and then realizing that, hey, where's the bandit leader?
I've got all
this
the way
is
to the
another
bandit leader.
Yeah, this quest is another one of those quests where you have to talk to the lake first before guiding him. It's very unintuitive, but you just have to do it. And if you guide him and run all the way to the Forest of No Return here, you realize that the bandits leader not there. Major feels bad. But yeah, we're making a quick pit stop here before we go on to Prim Free, just to pick up the Viper Dagger here, as well as the Primeval Bow of Storms, which is the quest reward here. Primeval Bow of Storms is another weapon that boosts your wind damage. And as you might notice, we have 2 weapons now that can boost their wind damage. And yes, they do stack, and later on we'll be wanting to equip both of those items on a certain character that can equip both spears and bows. And keep in mind that the Sorcerer class also allows you to equip bows. So essentially a character that can equip spear, as long as they have the Sorcerer class, can have both stacks of the wind boosting equipment on them.
Yeah, and really the wind equipment is very easy and in the way to get. So like there are other elemental boosting equipments throughout the game. They're just not very efficient to get, and you can't stack them as easily.
Yeah. So wind's actually the one of the only few which you can stack double off. The others being fire and I believe ice.
Absolute
with
Zero,
the Absolute
BT
Zero plus the
Axe.
BT. But I don't think it's possible to. Oh no, you can have Haunted Sorcerer with the.
Haunted Best Sorcerer.
Yeah, you can have Haunted Sorcerer with the BTX plus Absolute Zero Staff. There are very few characters that can equip double elemental boosting weapons. So the Spear plus Bow being one of them, and then Therion can equip Heathcote's Dagger plus Herald Sword for fire, and then Hana can equip the BT Axe plus Absolute Zero Staff for ice. Oh, Alphen as well, I guess.
You forgot about Best Boy, Quadra. How could you forget about Best Boy?
Alphen's so good by himself. I never ever need him to be a sword. Okay, but here Teppo's going to take this encounter because he only took 1 encounter in Haunted 4, so correct decision by Teppo here.
Yeah, the nice thing with this run is it's pretty stable the last hour of the run. Like there's really not a ton that can go wrong. That's why the lead really hasn't shifted at all.
And yeah, the Primeval Bow is useful for this fight because it gives us just enough damage to take Albus out and without having to do any more stacking apart from Elephants. We just need a bit of extra damage from the BT sword here, but other than that, we're set. And again, the Sorcerer class being able to equip bows for some reason is pretty useful in this situation. So bye-bye, Albus.
Yep, pretty much exactly 1 chapter of difference between Shin and Teppo at this point. That can all change though. We still have the Galdera Gauntlet coming up. That's going to be the big make or break point. Will Phase 2 play nice?
Teppo's entering Everhold now. This is Prim's Chapter 4 area. And Prim is infamous because she has 2 Chapter 4 bosses. She has the honor of having a 2-phase fight for a Chapter 4 boss, and one of the only 2-phase fights in this game, the other being Galdera. So Simeon equals Galdera confirmed, Kappa.
Sounds right to me.
Anyway, there are certain things we want to do for Simeon. For the first phase, we want to steal a mental belt from the dancer Marionette. The mental belt is an accessory similar to the elemental augmenter. It gives 65 elemental damage, elemental attack, which is not as much as the elemental augmenter, but for the purposes of our speedrun, it's sufficient. Teppo getting the very unlikely encounter here, unless he took the money I didn't see. Gets it very early, actually. There's no reason to get the money, so he probably didn't. Anyway, on the first phase, you want to steal the mental belt, and then on the second phase, you want to have 1 buff, so either Elemental Break or you want Peacock Strut on Ophi. Ideally, Elemental Break, so you can have a 2-turn fight, but depending on who Simeon silences, he's guaranteed to silence at least 1 person, and there's a 50-50 chance that it goes into either Ophi or Tressa. You don't want it to go into either of them. If he silences either Prim or Therion, it's fine. If he silences Ophi or Tressa, you have to heal that status off, and most likely you won't be able to do a 2-turn, so you have to lose about 10 seconds there to do a 3-turn fight.
And this is where you notably find out if you messed up that menu buying Herbs of Clamor 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
That's always a really awkward time.
So I believe the first phase actually we used to do it differently. We used to do Elemental Break on Simeon. But that would make the steal on the Dancer Marionette 95%, and if you failed the Mental Belt steal, that's very cringe. But with the Tenebrae, you can actually hit them under the threshold. You give them enough damage so you get a 100% steal. And you just want to keep your party healthy with Prim in this fight, because chances are you're not going to level from this first phase. And Simeon on the second phase has a chance to double tap people if you don't level. So very good, Teppo targeted the correct target and killed Simeon there.
The hardest
so he's
target
able
of
to
the game.
go. Yeah, hardest target of the game. Actually, that's so true. And so he's able to go into Simeon too. Tressa gets silenced, and I think probably has to go for a 3-turn fight at this rate. So correctly identifies that he doesn't have to Elemental Break here. So he's going to heal off and then use the Elephant's Chair. And then probably defend with Ophi and then use a Peacock Strut. So that loses about 10 seconds compared to the ideal fight, but still a very clean fight. And meanwhile, Shin just finished up with Albus. So let's see if Shin's able to match Teppo's very good chapter 4. Well, I guess Teppo's chapter 4 was not that good because he did get one encounter. And he got the slower Simeon fight. So Shin potentially has a bit of time to make up in that chapter. Can catch up just a bit.
Oh, so is the teleporting out of Therion 4 not in the run anymore? Like, were you teleporting Northridge?
We go to Dust Barrow there. So we want to while we're in North,
doing the encounter early with Haunted.
What do you mean doing the encounter early with Haunted?
Like during
no, that was in the Cyrus route. Yeah, you do it
okay.
You get Haunted for a Cyrus route. But in the Ophelia route, you want Cyrus in the party because you want the JP on Cyrus. This is to learn certain skills later. And this fight is pretty annoying, especially if Ophi doesn't go first, because the dudes here can kill Cyrus. And you need Cyrus to be alive for this fight so that he can gain the JP. And yeah, this is very convenient because once you're in once you start during chapter 4, it spawns you at the tavern, so you can just go in and swap Cyrus into your party. And at the same time, you can unequip Prim and give her the unerring bracelet in the same menu, just to make her a bit more accurate. Shin actually getting the cringe encounter as well. Choosing to kill it. Don't know if it's for extra, if he's down on XP, or just wanting to guarantee the escape. But right now, Teppo's going to do one of the last few big menus of the game. We're coming up on the end of the run, and right now is when we're going to start to start setting up our party for the end game here. Cyrus is going to get hang tough, and this is just to survive the multitude of AoE attacks that are going to come his way. And then we actually give cover to Tressa. This is to set up a double tap proof Cyrus to be double tap proof on Darius later, because he's gonna AoE and hit Cyrus to 1 HP, and then the next attack is gonna be single target. So the way we set up our party up for Darius is that all of our party members are double tap proof except for Cyrus, who is double tap proof anyway because of cover. And then menu we also give Elemental Edge to Ophi. You unlock it by teaching 5 Rune Lord skills. Elemental Edge is very nice because it's a free Peacock buff. So you don't have to waste time doing Peacock, and it's essential for the setup for Lucia here. So Sunny could probably explain the main gimmick behind Lucia and why we delay Lucia until this part of the run.
Yeah, so Lucia sucks. The boss has 30 shields, and at this point in the run, breaking 30 shields would take forever, so we don't break her. It's much faster just to kill her in 2 turns with just a ton of damage at this point. So Ophelia has the BT staff on now, the Primeval Bow of Storms, all of the multiplicative buffs, and you can just take out the Chapter 4 boss without breaking her.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we're actually overpowered. We're literally overpowered at this point. We even took off the Sork Rope because we don't need all that extra elemental attack anymore. And we aren't even using a ×4 Ventus Salter. We're using a ×3 Ventus Salter. So we're literally overpowered here, but again, we have so much damage. We can just kill Lucia without having to break. Oh no, Teppo forgot. Teppo forgot to give a hang tough to Cyrus here. So this is where Shin can catch up. Shin has an opportunity. Shin has an opportunity to catch up here. Lucia is very annoying to have to recover because she will keep dealing damage to your party, and you have to keep healing them.
And she could wallop too with the stun characters. It gets really annoying. We'll see. If we can pull it
very
out.
Annoying. I think this should be fine.
Oh no.
No, that's fine. Tressa can revive Cyrus on the next turn.
Yeah. So the JP route on Cyrus is actually really, really tight. He does need to get his divine ability before Galdera, so he barely gets enough JP to get that with just the mandatory encounters between now and there. So him being dead is just absolutely not an option. There we go.
But yeah, if you set it up perfectly, that fight is a breeze. Teppo just breezing through Lucia here with that with that little nice Ventus Salter breeze. Not intended. But yeah, you can see the power of our Sorcerer here. And Teppo just putting Hang Tough here that he forgot to put on just now. Shin making his way through Northreach, and so he's gonna be able to catch up a bit on Teppo here. As long as he remembers to equip Hang Tough. That fight definitely could have gone a lot worse for Teppo. I'm very impressed with how Teppo managed to recover that, correctly identify it, and took advantage of his turn order to make sure that Cyrus is alive while still getting all his necessary buffs up. He managed to kill Lucia before the important turn 3, which is when she can start stunning characters.
Yep, so Teppo just finishing off the story prompts for Cyrus 4 here. It is faster to teleport out and go back in from the entrance to the Ruins of Eld. It's just another one of those fast travel tricks to save just a little bit of time. It also makes it so you can't get an encounter. If you're running back from that book or from the save, you could potentially get an encounter trying to get to this last final prompt. But yeah, and Teppo is down to only 1 chapter left. There's just Darius standing between him and the Azure-Eyed Tiger and the Gate of Finis.
I'm very upset at how Sunny said you can't get an encounter on the way to the mural here, because I've definitely gotten it.
You can get an encounter on the way to the mural?
Yes, you can. I've gotten it in Cyrus single story. That's the worst. But yeah, anyway, after Cyrus 4, you spawn right back in Atlas Dam. Here you can stock up on your Curious Blues if you don't have to, and most importantly, you want to steal the second elemental augmenter from Therese here. This is going to be very essential for damage later. Ideally, we would want to have access to that elemental augmenter early, but since Lucia is just so difficult to kill, we have to just make do without it. And there are only 3 elemental augmenters in this game. The third one is locked behind a post-game side quest with a boss that's pretty difficult to kill. Um, so that one's out of the question. Notice that Teppo purchases the Trinity Sword here normally you would not have enough damage, not damage, you would not have enough money for that, so we would steal a platinum sword in the tavern. But Teppo, I think, has a lot of money here, so he purchased the Trinity Sword, which technically has 8 more speed, so it's better for Olbrich later.
Speed is an illusion. Yeah, I think Shin definitely did catch up a little bit of ground there with the forgetting Hang Tough on Tapu's side. So that is one positive in his corner for his part of the race.
Yep, and Teppo coming up on final chapter 4 boss of this run, Darius. Like I mentioned, everyone's double tap proof here, so Darius is absolutely scripted. You can get a very fast fight if you can break him before he does anything. What he does here is steal item, which steals all your items and makes it so that you can't use any items. But it's fine, we don't have to use items here. And looks like Teppo's gonna have to take the slow fight here. If you break Darius before steal item, you skip the slow text box that says you retrieve your items. Yeah, and
I mean, back in my day, we didn't make anybody double tap proof, and you just cross your fingers.
Yeah, and notice how we're so strong that we don't even use Vented Salt or use Ardere Ignis here. Ignis Ardere.
Alright,
And now we're done with on chapter 4.
It's 32 out of 32 for Teppo there. Just one more side quest to go, 2 more side quests to go, and get a finish time.
Yeah, and now we're back in Boulderfall. This is the closest town to this is the closest town to the last side quest that you need to unlock Galdera, which is Alphas and Impresario. It's over in the Swarky screen here, and all you have to do is kill this tiger that spawns out of nowhere. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is Ventus Salter ×4. Sometimes it can troll you by using Soporific Fang and putting one of your characters to sleep. Actually have had that happen to me before. But it's not a dangerous fight at all.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing after finishing all of the stories they put this boss here, because it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and also has the Ring 1 battle music. Teppo getting funny Ophi first with the BT stuff, so he has to defend.
Speed is an illusion. Alright, so now Teppo is going to do the setup for the Gate of Finis. So basically, we're going to have Cyrus doing Balagars on basically all of the encounters, which is the Rune Lord, the last Rune Lord skill. And then we have to use all of those nuts on Therian, all of the Fortitude nuts, to make sure to get his physical attack as high as possible. Going to set up Tressa as the Sorcerer now, because like we mentioned before with the wind items, Tressa can equip both of the wind items and just stack those up with the double elemental augmenter and get her very, very powerful. Cyrus is going to get that BT axe, and like Quadra was mentioning earlier, that gives a percentage boost to Balagar's blade. And then the last slot is basically going to be a rotating slot for whoever needs JP. So at the start, it's going to be Primrose, and then we're going to switch it out to Alphen.
Sunny actually alluding to the Cyrus route there. In this route, we have Cyrus being the one that needs the JP. And then, Ophi's gonna be the Rune Lord for this gauntlet. But yeah, in the past we used to have a Primrose here. We would just keep her in the party all the way from her chapter 4 all the way through Lucia and Darius into the gauntlet.
We have enough for Balagars, right?
Yep, we do have enough for Balagars. There's a backup strat you can do if you don't have Balagars, but realistically you always have Balagars. So these fights are going to be very simple. Just give 1 BP to Ophi, and then you want to use Elemental Break, and then break them, and then use Balagars. Balagars is an incredibly strong skill. It ignores a lot of ignores a very large percentage of your enemy's elemental defense on top of dealing 6 very strong hits of every element to the enemy, and with a very large multiplier. And then we have the BT axe on Ophi to boost 2 of these hits, and it's going to give us enough damage to one-shot most of these bosses with Balagar's Blade. The only bosses that don't die outright to one Balagar's Blade is Simian here, and also Dragon, which is the next one we fight. But we can just use Tressa for that extra bit of damage. And you can see a glimpse of Tressa's power right now, as she uses little trait winds here to fix the damage threshold on Simian.
Yeah, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Octopath, this is just a boss gauntlet. Basically, the game throws you in here with 8 shadow versions of bosses that you've already fought earlier. These bosses are basically just juiced up versions of the boss that they represent. You only get to save at the start of this boss gauntlet. So you do your 8 bosses and then you fight Galdera. If you mess up and if you die, you have to go all the way back to the start of the gauntlet.
So now Cyrus has enough JP for Alphen later, so we can kick him out the party. For Alphen, who is infinitely more useful, and we're gonna give Alphen the double tomahawk, as well as a lot of HP items to make sure he's beefed up, ready to survive lots of attacks. Get a very nice turn order here with Dragon, essentially killing Dragon as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's just a lot of little micro optimizations here, like reading your turn order and seeing the fastest way to do things is really how you save time in these gauntlets.
You can see Tressa with her little trait winds here doing over 30,000 damage. One of the weakest spells in the game, but dealing as much damage as one hit of Balagar's. And so Darius here is pretty much the only gauntlet fight that can go wrong. And here he has a very bad turn order. Someone might die here unless it's Alphen. Yep, Darion dies. So if Teppo taught Vivify to Alphen, he can use it here. But he's gonna have to do a bit of recovery here. He's gonna heal up just in case people take hits. We have to set up Elemental Break anyway, so let's see what Teppo decides to do here. Vivify, maybe? There we go. There's a very niche use of Vivify on Darius. And very nice recovery for Teppo here. Able to donate BP and clean up the fight with Valagar's Blade. Notice he uses a Trade Winds here. This is because Darius is actually a range.
Meanwhile, on the right side, Shin has done his setup, and he's going to be heading into Gate of Finis himself. So, 4 bosses behind. That is definitely not unrecoverable. If Phase 2 decides to be mean to Teppo, this can very well swing in Shin's favor.
Wow, this is a very good Matthias fight. Getting Alphen right before Matthias as he does anything, able to skip both his animations. This is a very fast Matthias fight. And yeah, Matthias here is just as pathetic as he was in Ophi's Chapter 4. He's probably the easiest boss. And right after this, Teppo's probably going to do a menu here, and he wants to give Warrior class to Firion, and give Dry Some spell to Tressa, and then teach all the divine skills for every class here. And this is to set up for the boss later. We want to have Alfrix with Ophi, Abers on Therion for damage, as well as Doders on Alphen. Doders is a skill that allows one party member to use items on every party member. And so we're going to combine that with the Rev Gem to be able to replenish BP, SP, and HP fully to the entire party later. It's one of the very OP combinations that you can use with Doders. And you also want to have Warrior on Therion because you need to set Therion up for the final fight of this gauntlet. And we'll explain that when we get there. Or I guess we can explain it now since these last few fights are kind of uneventful. So yeah, Sunny, do you want to explain why we need to set Therion up to die?
Yeah, so the big reveal at the end of your 8-person gauntlet here, your 8-boss gauntlet, is that now you have to form 2 parties. So you've been playing the game with 4 characters at a time, but Galdera only allows you to use each unique character once. So you have to set up your 8 characters into a 4x2 setup. And we've only really had 1 damage dealer up to this point. So we need to set up Therion as our physical damage dealer. So he got all the fortitude nuts, he got all of the physical attack items, and all of that stuff. One of the important passive skills is fortitude, which deals percentage damage based on how much HP you have missing. So we're going to set up Therion to die during the Werner fight. And when Therion dies, we resurrect him at 1 HP, and he's going to deal just a metric ton of damage to phase 2. So it's really important that we make sure to have this very specific setup, and that we do not heal Therion.
Yeah, exactly. And Therion's gonna get the War Master class later with also the physical prowess. That's also gonna give him even more physical damage. Essentially a free Lion Dance, 1.5 times boost to your physical damage, as well as the BB Eater, all that good stuff. And then the other members of the of our party, like Primrose and Ulbrich and Hanan, they're gonna have Hang Tough because they haven't been in a party long enough to get enough levels and HP. We're just gonna use Hang Tough to make sure they survive long enough to give Therion palms and supply him with the resources that he needs.
Yep, so you're going to see Therion taking a dirt nap here. As we all know, the biggest meme is Therion dying because he just loves to do it so much.
Yeah, exactly. This is probably a good time to explain why we want lots of speed on Ulbrich as well. The ideal pattern in the final boss, the phase 2, is to get 1 person before Therion, before the Maw. The Maw is the most dangerous part of the boss. You have to hit it below 50% HP, otherwise it will use a spell and kill your entire party. And if the Maw goes before Therion, you basically just have to pray that it doesn't do that. But if Therion goes before, you can have the opportunity to hit it below its 50% threshold. With 1 person plus Therion, you can have the fastest fight, which is Palm Elf Therion into Abers, a massive AoE skill which just nukes the entire enemy board. Does a lot of damage based off both your physical attack and speed. That's also one of the reasons why Viper Dagger is so good, because it gives you a ton of speed on top of a lot of physical attack. And then, if you have only Therion before the mod, still a win. You just use Nightmare Chimera, which is a skill that allows you to yeet weapons for damage, and we use it to yeet Werner's sword on the Maw to hit it below its threshold. The downside is that you have to take a slower fight, roughly 40 seconds slower, but it's still a win. So as long as Therion goes before the Maw, we are good.
I just want to add that is infinitely better than what we were doing a year and a half ago. Thank you to Zero and Sanjin for coming up with some big brain Galdera fights, like using mini hilds. It was bad.
Yeah, and shout out to Dahlia as well. Dahlia's the one who realized that you could use Avers on the Galdera phase 2. We used to use Winterhild's Battlecry, which is a 6-hit attack, which with every weapon type that you can get. The downside of that is you have to pick up lots of weapons, which obviously took a lot of time. But now we're actually going to dive right into the first phase. Essentially, in this phase, you want to have a staggered turn order to keep your party healthy in between the Eye's attacks. And then the theme of this fight is that you want to stack every single buff on Tressa so that she can nuke the boss at the end. Teppo getting the unlucky, slightly unlucky Ophi before the Eye turn order here, so he's going to have to do a backup. We aren't going to see as much Unga Bunga big nuke damage from Tressa, but we are still going to see him get past this first phase very easily.
Yeah, basically the backup is just the bad turn order. You have to hit twice instead of just doing 1 big hit. You do 2 smaller hits. It is slower because you get more animation time, but it's better than dying, that's for sure.
Yeah, so normally what you want to do is you want to set up a rune of Ophi to kill the ad. You need to kill the ad after the eye, otherwise it will spawn more ads. In this case, Ophi is going before. So instead, what Teppo is going to do is he's going to use a trade winds to kill the ad instead. And then he only set up the rune to pass Ophi's turn there because Cyrus is going to heal the party. And then from now on, you want to stack as many buffs as you can on Tressa. You can't stack as many as in the ideal fight, but you can still try to. You can still get Elephants, Alfrix on, and Peacock. And here we use 2 Ventus Salters instead. In the ideal fight, you use a 1 Ventus Salter, which hopefully Shin gets so you can see the full extent of Tressa's damage. Yeah, but in this case, it's still a win, just slightly slower because you get 1 extra cast of Ventus Salter. Or technically 2 extra casts because you have Alfrix. But we can still see some pretty large damage numbers. Tressa is going to do most of the damage, and we're going to use Balladeur's Blade to do the rest of the damage here.
Yeah, and Shin actually gained a lot of ground on the boss gauntlet. He's going to be entering into Galdera phase 1 here momentarily. Alright, so phase 2. So like Quadra was saying, the Maw is the most important thing to look for. You really want to make sure that you get Maw down below 50% HP before it gets to act. So if we get a bad turn order, that sometimes isn't possible and you have to cross your fingers. So phase 2 can absolutely just end your run for no particular reason. So let's look at turn order here.
So get to hear some of the best music, boss music, one of the best themes. And yep, we get the very good fight. We get a perfect turn order here, basically. So Teppo is going to instantly palm Altharion, and you can just press Abers to win here.
Yep, so 2 Abers, 1 needs to be a Panther Danced, and then a Nightmare Chimera.
Yeah, so you want to the blade doesn't die to 2 Abers, so you need either Panther Dance on Therion or Armor Corrosive on the blade. Panther Dance increases Aber's damage because it increases Therion's speed, which Aber scales off of. And you can see Maw here passes its turn because it's hit below the 50% threshold. And now, now Shin's gonna Teppo's gonna press the win button with Abers here. To just to kill Galdera here. Right after his defenses go down, he's probably going to leg hold. No, in this case he doesn't have to because got a pretty good turn order, so he could probably skip the break. And we're gonna yeet the Death Cleaver here for max damage. One final use of the Death Cleaver here. And here probably Teppo is gonna chuck the Werner's Sword. Oh no, he's gonna use Abers. Didn't yeet the Werner's Sword for that flashy 1 HP 1 SP fight. But that is Galdera from Teppo.
Time's coming up here pretty quick.
Time's coming up for Teppo right as the next box appears, and time. Teppo gets a 3:35.29, I believe. Very, very respectable time. And here we can shift our attention over to Shin's side, who...
It's a scuffed eye fight.
Oh, this is a scuffed eye fight. Yeah, I didn't know this. I didn't notice what was going on.
This is still recoverable for sure. So he's gonna have to break the soul again, and then kill it off. He might run out of resources here though. So the current iteration of the Galdera route doesn't really pick up any backup resources. So if you run out of your revitalizing jams that your Dothair is in, it gets pretty sketchy. Yeah, that's a very, very good time from Teppo. I believe that's only like 2 minutes off from his PB. In a non-Kate run marathon setting.
Let's see if Shin's able to recover this fight. probably wants to make sure he gets.
さあ、ここから削り
He's
切ら
probably
れ
gonna
る
need
と
another break.
復活してしまって、
I don't think he has the setup
最後
to
に
kill it in
ショート
one.
になってしまいます。
Really wants Alfrix here. Doesn't have elemental
トレーサーに
break.
防御をかけた
Probably
状態に
elemental
して、
break. He does have Dry Sun spell on though.
まずは攻撃ですね。
Let's
Yeah, it's
see.
gonna be 2
Okay.
breaks.
If
maybe not.
Shin, no, if no, he's not gonna be able to get Balagars here.
風神魔法2回にしたかな、これは。
そうですね、次のターンもまだ動けま
Let's
す。
see if he can get one more big Vented Salter hit there. Let's see, wonder if this is enough.
What fell off?
最後
What
の一撃
buffs?
決まるかどうかですね。
Oh, nothing. That should be it.
Oh, very nice recovery from
倒
Shin.
し切りました。
Yeah, yeah, that was actually really, really good. That was only like 2 turns
最
slow.
終戦に入っていきます。
Not sure what happened to Shin there, but very happy that he was able to recover from that, because if you die in this fight, obviously you have to restart over and over again, which is not ideal.
皆さんのお祈りしましょう。
So very happy for Shin that he was able to recover that. And now we can get to Shin's phase 2.
いけるように祈りましょ
So we didn't get to see Tressa's full damage there. In the ideal fight, she would do 65,000 per hit. And Shin also getting the good fight here. He has to remember to leg hold the maw here. Just to make sure that it doesn't...
う。大丈夫です。
Just to make sure it doesn't kill everyone. Oh, in this case, this is going to be a bit Monka because... oh, no! He can use Panther Dance. Yep, Panther Dance is fine. So he needs to Palm Elf there. He needs to like hold the Maw here, and then Panther Dance Darion.
結構後ろの方にいますね。
He needs to Panther Dance Darion to get him before the Blade. And because the Blade's gonna AoE and kill everyone on and kill people on next turn, because the Light Black's going before the Blade, she will buff the Blade to deal AoE damage.
ちなみに
He sees it.
リブラックは次、なんだっけ、エンチャント教区とかやってくるから、ほっといてよくて。体験より前に、前に
Shin has to like hold the Maw here. There's
大丈夫なはず。
リブラックがこの次の
I think they're walking through it together.
んですけども
That's some sportsmanship.
この時に
I see both of them talking.
行動を許してしまうと全体攻撃が飛んできて
There we
So
go.
he's gonna
There we
need
go.
なってしまいます。
he's gonna need a bit of extra damage on the Blade.
Oh, he's fine. He had Panther Dance.
この行動が
He has Panther Dance.
粘
Yeah.
着粘着
No, he doesn't have Panther Dance.
I thought he did.
歩兵で落とす気かな。落とせるかなけど。
Oh, you're right.
さあ体験
I think he'll be able to use 2 Soul Stones still, so
足りなかったですね。
Does he have 2 soul stones? He was tight on soul stones.
でもこれは
What?
it's gonna
Oh,
be
no.
very
Oh,
it's
no.
gonna be very dangerous.
体験の攻撃が
It's gonna be very
し
Monka.
まうか。
これ怪しくないか。じゃあ体験で次に激しい動きをしてきたから。激しい動きをしてから粘着
He's good.
あ、よかった。単体砲撃ですね。
Just
なんと
Ab
かやりきりま
just
した
use Abers
危ないで
again.
すねちょっと
おお。これはバクるんじゃないかな。
微妙に足りない
Should be very close to killing it.
出るかどうかですね。
Hopefully it doesn't
なんでガ
AoE.
ラスにした。
Oh no.
That's rude.
あー
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so we had to see Shin redo the gauntlet
こ
here.
れが
Galdera be like that sometimes.
こっからですね、ちょっと6分ぐらいかかっちゃうんですよ。
Okay, Shin's gonna reload a safety save. Probably. Probably a save file. Like we said,
ここからやり直し6分ぐらいかか
if you die you have to redo the gauntlet. So for marathon purposes, runners will usually have a backup save here, and we can actually use glitches to we can actually use a glitch to make sure we to warp out of the gauntlet
バグ技が
so we can save before that.
まあちょっと向かってますね今。
It's no longer a glitchless run. No, that's good. I'm glad that he had a safety save ready. It'll be
Yeah,
nice
that-
to see if we can get Tressa's full damage on the eye.
Yeah, Shin probably didn't feel good with that phase 1. Shin probably wanted a clean phase 1, so get to see Tressa's full damage here, maybe? Shin wanting to flex that Vented Salter.
Yeah, that was a really rude phase 2. I don't think I would have known how to bail that out.
攻撃食らう前なので、
はい、やってもらって大丈夫です。いただきました。
ありがとうございます。
Yeah, and I just checked. Teppo's PB is a 333, so he's only 2 minutes slower in a marathon, no Kate.
回復
That has to feel pretty good.
する前に攻撃を食らった状態です、今。そして次
So here, Tressa has the option of healing the party if needed. But in this case, Cyrus is going to be able to heal the party as well, and Ophi already has a rune up, so
大丈夫ですね。
there's no need. Cyrus is going to be able to rev gem the entire party up, and then Ophi is going to be able to heal everyone back up.
Ophi's after eye, good to go.
Yeah, Ophi is after the eye, so we get to see the standard fight here. If Ophi was before the eye and Tressa is before the eye, that would have been extra rude.
オフィリアが3ターン目遅くなってるんで。
ここで一度。
So fun fact about this eye fight, Ophi is the only one who survives electrocute into Searing Orb. Everyone else needs a heal. And I believe some people die to 2 Searing Orbs as well. But in general, the healing great bunch should be fine.
ここで眼球の攻撃が飛んでき
Yeah,
ま
the
す。
eye is very powerful, and we're still very underleveled. Like, our party here is
Oh,
only, like,
why is the
45.
cursor? Why was the cursor on the
Oh
the
no.
eye?
Oh no. Because it was on Blade.
これはターゲットを間違えてしまいましたね。
Oh no, that's so unlucky.
時間さんに阻まれるとは。
Cursor mechanics are so rough in this game.
Yeah, the cursor remembers where the last target it was on. So like each enemy has like a number 1, 2, 3, 4, like all the way through. So if you were on enemy 2, it's going to be on enemy 2. And depending on, even if you exit out, whatever enemy number it was on before is what it's going to be on after the reload.
なんとかなる範囲ではあります。
で次のター
So
ン
now we get to see him pull another eye out of his butt.
やり直しできる、これは。
Yeah, I really can't blame Shin there. It is very the cursor is very inconsistent. Basically some defending will reset the cursor mechanics, but
そうですね。単体の
it's very inconsistent. Like sometimes it seems to just not reset for some reason, sometimes it does.
ちゃってるんですよね。
We're very used to having the cursor on the advert
めんどくさく
over here, so
これあれじゃない
I mean I would have definitely done the same
これ
thing
じゃない
if I were Shin.
鼻でアーフェンやった方がいいよ。行動順いじった方が。もう一回
That's why this category is just absolutely brutal too. Like, you have 3.5 hours, and then the 2 hardest fights are right at the end.
これで、コード順が遅くなりましたね。さあ、ここで動かれると厄介なんで、このターンのうちに
ここは雷じゃないか。
That's okay. The marathon was way ahead of schedule anyway. We can take like an hour, right?
なので、まあ、バフかけた
Yeah, so Shin here might be trying to redo the fight.
火のルーンをかけ直し
So as you can see, he set up a peacock strut again on Tressa, and he's basically gonna do the exact same fight
まだ単体化してますが、
on everyone.
でブレイク。一旦は、攻撃食らう状況を回避した。
体力はあるから大丈夫かな。
この次耐えれば大丈夫。
Shin's gonna basically redo the entire fight. And so here he's going to set Dry Sun's spell up.
Yeah, he's good to just full reset from here.
He doesn't have Doders on though, that's what they're saying.
どうするべきだ。
でもドーターなくても、なんとかなるかな。ドーターなしで行った方が。でトリサだけで、
So probably gonna hope for some good turn order here. He's gonna stack the buffs on Tressa as per normal and gonna try to break the eye.
このボスね、
こういう状況になってくると。
He has to break the eye here.
残りの量によって、
That's a bit unlucky. So he's not gonna be able to get the rev gem onto
足
everyone.
りなくなっちゃうんで。
そうですね、その間にゴリ押しをすれば削り切るこ
It's
と
gonna
は
element
That's just no
break here.
Balagar.
なんですが、
Yeah, Tressa's still gonna be able to get a lot of damage out.
There's gonna be a Balagar short, which is fine.
It's gonna be a Balagar.
あ、大丈夫、大丈夫、大丈夫。
単体化のアイテムですが、鳥さんにしよう。
Yeah, Tress is just gonna have to whack it again after it done breaks. Like you can just do it well before without it being broken. It'll be just fine. Extra turn.
You can see Tressa's a big damage here.
Some spicy damn.
Okay, he probably wants to
Bomb Tressa win. Easy.
Yeah. He does have elephants out though, so after this the eye is gonna spawn more ads, and he's gonna have to take all of those out. But with elephants it's gonna be a bit tricky. Probably wants to keep everyone healthy just in case takes damage. I believe this point the eye will spawn free ads, yep. So over here Ventus Altar will kill them. Oh, he consumes the ad. Okay, that's free. That's so free for Shin.
Yeah. He doesn't even need a break. Tressa just kills.
Yeah, just use like a Lux Conjurer or something. Or Ventus Salter is fine. This doesn't do any. Doesn't matter
Gotta
here.
go for the overkill.
Alright, there you go. Good recovery from Shin again. And so let's hope that this time the phase 2 is a bit kinder to him. He did get a very tricky turn order the previous time, so this time let's hope that he gets a much more favorable turn order. Again, we're looking for Therion before the Ma, which is the head. And this is much better than before. So this is very easy, you just Abers. Palm L plus Abers equals win. So he's probably gonna Panther Dance here, just to get extra damage onto Therion. Yep. Panther Dance is very useful in this fight because sometimes you can use Panther Dance to move Therion up one, to move Therion before the enemy that's going before him, and in some cases this will be Galdera in main body, which would allow you to speed up the fight by one turn, because if Therion kills the parts after Galdera's turn, you have to wait one turn for the defenses to go down. But here, the defenses will go down right after Therion kills the parts. And here, probably leg hold in this case.
I'm glad he got a comfy fight after the 2 scuffed eyes and then the rude turn order on phase 2.
Yeah.
Has to feel nice.
You have the unerring bracelet for Prim here because your characters can actually miss. So Prim's gonna be very comfortably hitting all of her hits here. You see Shin just boosting with Hanit here. Don't want to take any chances because Hanit can miss. And we have Abers for the win.
That's the run. Still a
GG.
very respectable time, even with having to reload a save.
I really like how Shin persevered and recovered free of his fights. I seriously would applaud Shin for that. And Teppo as well. Both of these runners doing very well in this run. On top of having to provide commentary in a marathon setting, I think both of these runners did exceptionally well. Very good decisions throughout the entire run when it came to XP, JP, and money route. And even the stone route was, even though it looked a bit scuffed at first, but they actually did have enough stones in the end, so that was a very nice stone management by them as well. And yeah, I'm very, very impressed by how both of them managed to recover fights that went wrong.
Yeah, I think for me, highlights were Teppo's Theora. Like, that was, I did not think he had the damage for that. And then Shin's 2 eye fights, both of those were scuffed. And, like, just pulling out backups in a marathon setting, where that was ridiculous. Very, very good runs from these guys. And I'm really happy to have been able to commentate it. And thank you, Quadra, for commentating it with me.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny. Very nice to have you here as well. It's definitely a run that's there's so much to explain. It can be very daunting, especially if you're commentating solo and if you're doing the run at the same time. So I'm very grateful that Sunny's here to commentate with me, able to provide some of it insights as well. So yeah, and congratulations to both the Japanese runners for their performance here.
じゃあ、ちょっと先に、僕の方から、お話しします。
Yeah, and I think on that note, we'll go ahead and sign off.
オクトパストラベラー RT はいろいろなカテゴリーがありまして、各
Yep, thanks everyone for watching and listening to our commentary. Hope you're able to provide some good insight into the route as well as entertainment for your viewing pleasure.
合計十数個のカテゴリーがありまして、非常に多くの方に
And I don't know if there's an English restream after this, but RTA in Japan will keep continuing for the next 2 days. So make sure to watch some more. Have a good night, everybody.
僕も今後ちょっと今回は解説という立場で参加させていただきましたが、いずれ奏者として出るようにこれからも RTA 精進していこうと思います。本日は本当にありがとうございました。さて、
コメント来ましたね、シンさんが。シンさんからコメント、はい。
じゃあ僕の方で読ませていただきますね。ガルデラ戦、2回とも初めての戦い方で、なんとかいけて一瞬の気の緩みを疲れぐだぐだになってしまいました。最後、きれいに決めれなくて非常に心残りです。そうですね、この本番の魔物は恐ろしいので、特にこのガルデラのカテゴリーは、最終戦がちょっと厳しかったりするので、ちょっと、本番で、ストレートいけなかったのは残念ですけど、見事、通し切っていただけました。本当にありがとうございます。
お疲れ様でした。
お疲れ様でした。
じゃあ、大丈夫ですかね。はい、それでは、オクトパストラベラー、なんかまだ大丈夫かな。それでは、
大丈夫です。
オクトパストラベラー、RT ガルデラですね、ご視聴いただきありがとうございました。
はい、引き続き RT ジャパン、ご視聴ください。では、またいつか会いましょう。